today. The director informed me that his staff will still be listening to public witness testimony today. We're working on scheduling a new hearing for our DPW government witnesses and will publicize that date as soon as it is finalized. DPW's mission is to provide critical municipal services that are both ecologically sound and cost-effective, including solid waste management, parking enforcement, fleet management, and snow removal. DPW is one of the district's most public-facing agencies and one of the most important agencies in this committee. When DPW does its job well, there are fewer rats, fewer scofflaw vehicles on the street, cleaner, safer, and more vibrant neighborhoods. DPW's work is seen and evaluated every single day. Because of this, the committee has significant help from concerned residents, advocates, and stakeholders in our overview of the agency. We're often told very quickly when things go wrong, but hearing from the public on days like today is so important because it gives us an opportunity to dig into agency functions in more detail. I also want to spend time digging into where things are going right and where processes are improving things overnight. While performance and budget oversight hearings are the most public way we do oversight, my team is doing oversight work for the agency year-round, and I want to highlight the entire DPW leadership team has been very responsive to me and my team. I make no excuses for where things have gone wrong, but I do appreciate this willingness to work with and be open with us. I'm proud to say the end of the last 2-year council period saw this committee move 2 major pieces of legislation related to DPW. The Clean Collections Amendment Act of 2024 requires minimum standards for solid waste disposal capacity at multifamily properties and commissions DPW to study waste management zones to improve and simplify commercial collections. The Fraudulent Vehicle Tag and Parking Enforcement Modernization Amendment Act of 2024 is a top-to-bottom reorganization of DC statute related to parking enforcement that also brings the district's parking enforcement law into the 21st century. DPW is empowered to more swiftly impound vehicles with missing, obscured, or fraudulent plates, and a new vehicle point system is created as a more equitable new standard for determining whether vehicles are boot or tow eligible. These 2 laws won't change things overnight, as they still have to be funded and rolled out, but I believe they set the agency up for continued success and improvement, and I'm looking forward to working on their implementation with the agency. This is also an exciting time for new legislation. Last month, I was joined by 10 of my colleagues to introduce the Recycling Refund and Litter Reduction Amendment Act of 2025, which establishes a beverage container deposit program in the district and a 10-cent deposit on applicable beverages, and consumers are refunded when consumers return those containers to be recycled. If the bill passes, DC would be the first state in over 20 years to implement a beverage container deposit bill. Plastic bottles alone account for 60% of the weight of all trash retrieved from the Anacostia River. Many of these containers end up going to landfill rather than getting recycled. A container deposit system like the one I've proposed is the only policy of appropriate scale to really tackle this problem. While the program would be overseen by the Department of Energy and Environment, it closely implicates DPW's work. Also on my radar during this year's performance oversight are the various pilot programs run by DPW. Curbside compost collections, the public restroom program, and scofflaw vehicle enforcement pilot. All 3 have shown major success and generally have had very high resident satisfaction, which means we should be thinking through how to wind down pilots and start to implement permanent agency programs and policies. I look forward to hearing from both our public witnesses today on these and other issues related to DPW. I greatly value your input. I do want to remind our witnesses that have joined today to make sure you submit written testimony, which you can do through the hearing management system. There are only a small handful of people on our witness list today we have written testimony for, which helps me and my team review and formulate questions and ensures that comments are enshrined in the written record. The portal is open and available to submit testimony during our hearing today. You can find it at lims.dccouncil.gov/hearing. Some logistical instructions for today's hearing. We are receiving witness testimony today exclusively via Zoom. Witnesses testifying on behalf of an organization will have 5 minutes to provide oral testimony, and all other witnesses will have 3 minutes. In order to ensure we hear from all members of the public, I ask that witnesses stick to their allotted time. When your panel is called, I will say your name and you will be sent an invite to be promoted to the panel. Please accept that invite and then you'll be able to access your camera and your microphone. For any technical difficulties, please send a message over Zoom to the host, which is labeled as Committee on Public Works and Operations, or any panelist labeled as committee staff, and they will follow up with you. If you're having trouble gaining access to the Zoom and you have pre-registered, you can reach my team at publicworks@dccouncil.gov, and they will work to resolve your issue. Okay. All right, our first panel includes Mark Eckenweiler, ANC 6C04, Huma Imtiaz, ANC 5E04, Zachary Israel, Ed Comer, ANC 2A, Tripti Patel, ANC 2A, Joe Bishop Henchman, ANC 5F06, Jamila White, ANC 8A, Paula Edwards, ANC 4A, and let's stop there for now. Commissioner Eckenweiler, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Mark Eckenweiler. I am the Vice Chair for ANC 6C and Commissioner for Single Member District 6C04. I'm here this morning to talk about the failure of DPW's Parking Enforcement Management Administration, PEMA, to enforce the residential parking permit penalties prescribed by the council. Now, there's a lot to say here on this subject broadly, but today I want to focus on one particular issue. As you know, district regulations provide for the creation of RPP designated blocks. Drivers who park without appropriate permits for more than 2 hours in such spaces are subject to an initial penalty of $35. And for chronic offenders, third and subsequent offenses in a given calendar year are subject to a fine of $65. Separately, the regulations also provide for resident-only RPP blocks with no 2-hour grace period. There's a similar but non-identical structure of fines here, $30 for the first 2 violations, and in a single calendar year, third and subsequent violations are subject to a $60 penalty. Now, obviously, these rules serve multiple goals. Most obviously, they reserve street parking for residences and their residents and their visitors where parking is in greatest demand. But as a secondary and very important benefit, they deter non-residents from making vehicle trips into the district, getting essentially free parking. And this thereby reduces traffic volumes, other adverse impacts such as air pollution. Unfortunately, PEMA is not applying these rules properly. When citing violators on resident-only blocks, so those are the blocks with no 2-hour grace period, PEMA officers consistently issue tickets for, quote, disobeying official sign, close quote, which incurs a fixed $30 fine. These violations have no enhanced penalty for repeat violators, and the result is PEMA is giving chronic offenders a substantial discount, which undermines the rule's deterrent effect. I first brought this problem to the attention of the administrator more than 2.5 years ago, that was June 2022, and have followed up multiple times, most recently in December. The administrator has replied promising a substantive response on multiple occasions, but has never done so. Now, my concerns are not purely theoretical. Repeat offenders are aware of this loophole and are actively exploiting it. I have a Maryland driver who parks in my SMD all day, every day, who has discovered that by parking in a resident-only space, he can get a substantial discount on those rare occasions when he gets any sort of ticket. And in my written submission, I've given you a list of citations issued to this particular vehicle. So I have 2 requests of the committee this morning. One is I implore you, persuade, cajole, demand, whatever verb you choose, get PEMA to start writing the right ticket for the right violation. Right now, that $60 chronic offender penalty for resident-only zones is meaningless. They're just not writing those tickets at all. But second, more broadly, I'd like to suggest that the current regime of having a separate resident-only set of penalties and then RPP doesn't really make sense. I think we should unify those, have one consistent set of fines. If you want to give people, 2 bites at the apple before they get, the fines double, fine. But there's no reason to have these be separate categories. We have a lot of folks, I certainly see this in my SMD, I live very near Union Station, who simply come in every week and they're willing to chance it. Often they're not ticketed at all. In order to have deterrent effect, we don't need to give people 2, low-cost tickets in this category and then 2 in the other category. It ought to be really simple. After your first 2 violations of RPP of any sort, resident only or conventional RPP, from then on, get a doubled fine, start paying the price for your chronic violations. And that's the substance of my testimony this morning, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to testify, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Imtiaz.
Thank you so much, Council Member, and thank you for having me. My name is Humayun Imtiaz. I'm a commissioner in ANC 5E, representing Single Member District 5E04, which includes parts of Bloomingdale and a little bit of Edgewood and Ward 5. This testimony is in my individual capacity as a commissioner. And, as you alluded to in the beginning, this hearing could not have come at a more opportune time because we're expected to have a snowstorm this evening, but we're still feeling the impact of the previous snowstorm. Across my neighborhood, and I'm sure yours too, every block has Christmas trees piled up that DPW has yet to pick up. I mean, maybe they're a gift for my dog who has really enjoyed being on them, but I'm not really quite sure why DPW hasn't yet picked them up. Leaf collection has only just resumed again. While main avenues that led to downtown DC were immediately cleared in the hours after the snow that fell in January, residents in my ANC could neither navigate the streets nor cross the sidewalks because of all the snow that was piled up at ramps. DPW snow teams seem to only care about making roads navigable while ignoring and actively impeding access for pedestrians, including those who would require the use of ramps or bus stops. Trash collection was delayed for more than a week, and DPW refused to treat alleys ahead of time. 2 public trash cans in my neighborhood were overflowing for days and were only cleared out because I reached out to a council member's office for help. If DPW wants to do its job, like doing trash collection, it only has itself to blame for not being able to do so by not treating alleyways, which is how DPW collects trash from many neighborhoods. The other issue I wanted to highlight as a focus was DPW's parking enforcement. About a week ago or so, I saw a driver run a red light and endanger multiple pedestrians in the middle of the day. When I looked at how many tickets they owe, the amount, some $6,000 and counting as of today, was unsurprising because more often than not, DPW parking inspectors just keep issuing tickets. If someone owes thousands of tickets already, issuing them one more ticket is not going to change anything. Why impoundment in those cases or a boot is not the first call an inspector makes is beyond many of us. In the example I cited above, the driver had a DC plate, but yet we also continue to see cars on our streets every day with paper tags, some expired, some often blatantly fraudulent, some written with Sharpies that drive, and these drivers drive with impunity on our streets. And we have yet to see a plan from DPW that will actually penalize drivers and take these cars off of our streets. Given that DPW touts itself as a preferred choice, their slogan on their trash trucks, it is unfortunate that DPW's poor performance extends to other aspects. In multiple cases in the last year alone, DPW has closed tickets with no action taken when residents have submitted requests for pickup of illegally dumped goods. Trash piles up in public medians along busy roads. A resident who has also submitted testimony to this committee's oversight hearing has testified about how he picks up multiple bags of trash by himself every week because DPW will not do its job. And this is on the unit block of Rhode Island Avenue Northwest. Getting new trash cans takes months, if not years, and asking for a public trash can requires divine intervention. Councilmember, I really urge you to press DPW to fulfill its basic duties for the residents. And thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Zachary Israel.
Good morning, Chair Nadeau, members of the committee. My name is Zach Israel. I am a Ward 4 resident, former ANC commissioner, and current private citizen who cares deeply about DPW-related issues in the District of Columbia. So one thing I just want to start off the bat with, just over a year ago, when I testified at the last DPW oversight hearing, My testimony exclusively focused on the issue of snow in the district's bikeways, bike lanes, both protected and unprotected. And my criticism was aimed at DPW. And at the time, you had corrected me, Chair Nadeau, that it's actually DDOT that was responsible for bike lanes. But then fast forward to April of 2024 at DPW's, I think, budget hearing, Deputy Director of Operations Anthony Crispino acknowledged that DPW is indeed responsible for clearing off snow out of the bike lanes. Fast forward to last month in our snowfall events a few weeks ago, I saw a tweet from you saying that DPW is responsible for clearing snow from unprotected bike lanes, while DDOT is responsible for clearing snow from protected bike lanes. I also saw communications from Mayor Bowser saying that DDOT is responsible for clearing snow from all bike lanes. So this issue, it seems like we're in a partial state of confusion among district agencies as to who is responsible for clearing snow out of bike lanes. And what we saw a few weeks ago, after it snowed several days in a row, were miles upon miles of bike lanes, both protected and unprotected, not cleared, iced over for weeks after the snowfall event. And as you know, so many district residents cycle as a form of transportation. So due to both DPW and DDOT's inaction in this regard, cyclists who are trying to bike to work, to go drop their kids off at school, to go do other errands, were forced to bike in very dangerous conditions in the major roadways, even though we have lots of bike infrastructure. So my criticism of DPW is they didn't plow the snow out of the unprotected bike lanes, which they are apparently now responsible for, and DDOT also failed, and that's a separate issue. But I really want to see a focus from DPW, especially with this upcoming snow event, to actually do their job and make conditions safe for cyclists. Secondly, on a separate note, last month, our recycling wasn't picked up in Petworth for 3 straight weeks. I put numerous 3-in-1 requests in, reached out to the Mokers, and it was just an unacceptably long period after the snowfall event happened where no recycling was picked up and my neighbor's recycling was just spewing out everywhere. And my last thing on a positive note, curbside compost pilot is amazing. They do a great job. I've had a great experience with them. Thank you so much. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Patel.
Good morning, Chairperson Nadeau. Thank you for hosting this hearing so that our comments can be entered into the permanent record. My name is Tripti Patel, and I'm a 4th-term ANC Commissioner representing Single-Member District 2A03, which is historic Foggy Bottom. I'm testifying to say that the performance of Department of Public Works, DPW, from the last snowstorm has not been ideal. Let's hope that they have learned their lessons and will be better for this snowstorm that's coming up. As the chairperson emeritus of ANC 2A, I have been overwhelmed with emails around the following: leaf collection, people slipping on sidewalks due to ice forming and not having been cleared. DPW hasn't been consistent on a citywide basis of clearing the streets and ensuring that sidewalks are cleared. I flagged this as the roads and sidewalks form black ice, increasing vehicular accidents as well as many terrible falls. It's important that DPW stay on top of salting and clearing as preventative measures. Residents already face challenges in making sure that leaf collection is kept up with. And let's not even go into the rabbit hole of having functioning garbage cans. DC has a serious rodent problem. We're starting to be like New York with the amount of rats running around. I walked my neighbor's dog and she got into a fight with a rat, and it was epic, but she got scratched on the nose that involved an emergency visit to the vet to ensure that she wouldn't catch any disease or infections. I flag this as residents are having to beg to get new garbage cans as rodents have chewed through them. As the unhoused population has increased, so has the amount of trash that's being disposed of in public places. I hear from residents, not only in my single-member district, about the lack of consistency in the enforcement of regulations. Citations have been issued to residents for garbage cans that aren't theirs, and it's become a source of frustration. Residents file 311 requests not effective or efficient in regards to getting attention for issues around sanitation and parking issues. Another major issue I have flagged with the Ward 2 Mokers is the medical waste that is not being properly disposed of. And I believe it's been resolved. So wanted to tell you that that has been solved. My SMD contains one of the few residential alleys left in DC Snow's Court. These residents express frustration of paying tax dollars, but getting none of the benefits of having the alley cleaned by DPW, which will be covered by Mr. Will Crane, who is a resident of Snow's Court. I'm told to get services. Their designation has to be changed. Apparently, it's not official, which I believe the council takes council action. We hope to count on your support. Sanitation and cleanliness is a matter of public health and should be treated as a top level priority, funding wise versus being treated as an afterthought. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Before you start, Commissioner Bishop Henchman, I just want to note, Commissioner Edwards, you're supposed to be on this panel. We need you to accept the promotion to the panel if you'd like to speak. We'll send it one more time now. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Bishop Henchman.
Thank you, Chair Neto. My name is Joe Bishop Henchman. I'm an ANC commissioner for ANC 5F06, which is in Eckington, and home of one of the Throne restroom pilots, which we're very satisfied with and very excited to have. And I hope at minimum we continue the pilot, if not consider turning it into a permanent program so other parts of the city can enjoy this amenity that has proven to be very good for the users of Alethea Tanner Park in Eckington. And while I'd love to talk more about that or talk about the bottle bill, and thank you for your leadership on this proven and innovative solution to much of our litter problem that I hope the council will strongly consider this coming year. Or talk about illegal vehicles where we put in 311 requests and they don't come out for 2 or 3 days. And surprisingly, sometimes the car is not there anymore. So I'm not really sure if that's the best way to do all that. But the main reason I wanted to testify today was to talk about the Bryant Street pedestrian bridge and the snow removal or lack thereof that occurs on it. And you may remember I testified about this last year. And as you may suspect, I'm back because it remains a problem. We really do need a signed memorandum of understanding between DPW and private sector partners surrounding the bridge and other agencies to make sure that it is very clear who is responsible for what about this essential connection between the Rhode Island Avenue Metro Station and thousands of Eckington and Edgewood residents who utilize it as the direct connection to the west of the station. The bridge was built in 2014, and because it connects the WMATA station with DDOT infrastructure along the MBT and a private developer on the west, there, at least initially, was a lot of confusion over who is responsible for the upkeep and snow removal on this bridge. Luckily, Councilmember McDuffie in 2020 pressed that issue and got confirmation that DPW is responsible for snow removal on the bridge and DDOT is otherwise responsible for it. Unfortunately, sometimes things get forgotten. And so last year in 2024, after 2 snowfalls, the bridge was left an icy mess for days. Commissioner Rusani and I intervened with the mayor's office. And after a couple days, we managed to get confirmation yet again that DPW is responsible and they got a team out to clear the snow and ice. Unfortunately, this last winter in February, in order to resolve this once and for all, we asked for the first time that a memorandum of understanding occur between all of the agencies on this. To date, that has not happened. Because that has not happened, as snow was approaching this January, just over a month ago, we were getting worried, and so we proactively reached out to the mayor's office and to DPW to remind them that DPW is responsible for the bridge and to get the bridge pre-treated and to get it cleared after the snow happened. The pre-treatment did not occur. The snow started to fall January 5th. Nothing was happening on the bridge. And January 6th, 7th, the bridge was an icy mess for everybody trying to get it. Commissioner Sani and I flagged it repeatedly. Councilmember Parker joined in January 6th, January 7th, January 8th. Commuters, the city reopened January 8th. Commuters were having to pick their way across the snow and ice, very dangerous situation. That's when complaints really poured in. And that evening, DPW finally came out to begin clearing the bridge. They ran out of salt when the job was about a third done. And so they had to leave. They said they would come back. They did not come back the next day. I think it was the day after that, they finally came back and chiseled a 2-person wide corridor. And then it took another day or two. Councilmember Parker had to intervene again in order to get them to come back and finally clear the bridge. I want to make clear, this is not a situation where we want our thing cleared first before everyone else in the city. I know that it's a big city and there's a lot of infrastructure to clear every snowfall, and it can get, not everybody can be first. This is a situation where we're completely forgotten. We're obviously not on anybody's list, and so it only gets cleared when we raise a bunch of stuff about it. As I said, there is a private developer up to the west and the metro to the east, WMATA to the east. They want to chip in, they want to help, but the only way they can do that legally is if there is a signed memorandum of understanding with the city, allowing them to do that for insurance purposes. So we hope you will press the issue and help make that happen. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Commissioner Edwards next. I want to note Commissioner Jamila White from ANC 8A. I see that you're in the Zoom. If you could accept the promotion to the panel, you'll be the next to testify. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you. I'm having some difficulty with my connection. Can I be moved back in the queue?
Sure, that's
Thank
not a
you.
problem. Let's just see if we can promote Commissioner White, and if not, we'll go to our questions. Ah, there's Commissioner White. You may begin your testimony when you're ready.
Can I just be moved back in the queue too? I need to restart my computer quickly because you all are coming in and out for me.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so Commissioner Edwards and White, if you want to restart your computers and rejoin, I'll put you on the next panel.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll be logged.
No problem. Okay, thanks everybody for your testimony. We'll just go in order with some questions. Commissioner Eckenweiler, really appreciate the concern that you've lifted up with the parking. In your experience, is DPW's inaccurate ticketing of RPP and ROP violations new, or have they been doing it correctly before, or has this just consistently been a problem?
Madam Chair, I am in my 7th term as an ANC commissioner, and I don't recall exactly when the resident-only program started, but I can tell you as a frequent user of the ticket database, I have never once, not once, seen a citation listed for resident-only parking. Never. There's a resident-only block directly around the corner from me. We have some on the blocks adjacent to H Street, as well as one block down on G Street. So I don't think they've ever done it. I think and I don't know if that's a failure, in the interactions between them and DMV in terms of coding the tickets, or whether the PEMA officers simply need training, but it's not happening now. It hasn't been happening. And the worst part to me is PEMA knows about this, because as I indicated in my testimony, I have been harping on this for years, and it has fallen on deaf ears.
Appreciate that. So DPW will definitely have to initiate a new rulemaking to implement the Parking Enforcement Modernization Act that I mentioned earlier that we just passed. So hopefully there's an opportunity to address the inconsistent fines that you mentioned. Are there any other similar issues you think they should prioritize if there's a rulemaking that modifies parking infractions?
I think the problem with resident-only ticketing, it really doesn't have anything to do with the regulations. We have the regulations in place now. But the second point that I raised at the end of my testimony about harmonizing and consolidating RPP and ROP, so that's simply one regime, I think that's something that should very much be a priority in any upcoming rulemaking.
Great. Thank you very much. Commissioner Imtiaz, you mentioned closed tickets for illegal dumping. So usually what happens is that the ticket's closed after the inspection, and then there's a new ticket issued for pickup. People don't
Didn't
know.
happen.
In the closed ticket, it says at the very bottom, this is your new ticket number. So that's not happening.
And in some cases it does, where like, for example, I've put in bulk like illegal dumping and, it's been like, it says closed and that an inspection has happened. But in other cases, this was specifically in 2 incidents in Ward 5 where there was trash dumped, there were multiple tickets that were opened by residents and they kept getting closed with no inspection, no comments, and no action taken.
Okay.
And again, in both cases, we had to intervene and elevate the issue.
Okay, got it. Thank you for the clarification. Are those in, did any of those happen to be in alleys versus other public rights of way?
Public rights of way, like on the main road. One was on the intersection of First and U Street Northwest, and the other was on the unit block of V Street Northeast.
You're clearly a pro. You knew exactly why I was asking. Okay. This is very helpful, and it's definitely something we want to help get fine-tuned, because I know that illegal dumping is a huge frustration for residents. Some of the parking enforcement problems that you noted are going to be addressed through the new fraudulent tags bill, which I'm very excited about. It is interesting to note that that first vehicle you mentioned had DC tags, which is usually one that we can get. So if you have the time and interest and you want to share any of the cases with us in email, I'd be happy to sort of run them down, just sort of to use as an example for a deeper oversight.
Absolutely. And one case actually you helped us with, which was in our neighborhood across the street from me, and that didn't have DC plates. But again, I think the issue is this car had already run up thousands of dollars of tickets and kept getting, inspectors would keep issuing tickets. So the thing is, like, at some point,
And
they
it's
have to just
parked,
stop.
so
Yeah, and it's parked.
Yeah, it's not like it's on the road getting automated tickets. It's literally
I'll follow up with your
ticket. Yeah. Okay. Right on. Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And Zachary Israel, we are coordinating with Chairman Allen, who has his DDOT hearing today, to talk more about snow clearing from bike lanes. So obviously it's a big issue. We've interacted both on social media and in real life about this, and is something we're going to continue to pursue. Glad you're liking the curbside compost program. Any recommendations on how to improve as we look to expand it?
I mean, in all honesty, I've been just very impressed across the board. They have a really good communications team that provides updates. They are adaptive. Like, for instance, after Halloween, they did like the pumpkin retrieval, which is something that they just sort of proactively did. So I've been very, very impressed. But I think if there's any way to incorporate those people who live in apartment buildings and condos that are currently ineligible, I know it's very costly, but I just want to put a plug in for those DC residents who are currently not eligible to participate. If there's any innovative ways they can expand it to that population, I would urge that.
Great. And did you hear about the new smart compost bins that are being installed?
Yes, I did. And I'm really curious in terms of how they will ultimately decide the locations across all 8 wards. I think that's going to be very important to be really strategic and thoughtful about that.
Those have been decided. They're about to be installed. And one of the things they took into account was how many multifamily were in the area that could use it because they're not eligible for the pilot. So that was a big thing, big part of it. but hopefully those will succeed. That was funding that I had put in the budget for something else that we couldn't quite do. And so they were like, what if we do this? It's like, excellent, more composting. So that I think will complement the farmers markets, and we'll see, you know, do people tend to use one more than the other when both are in place? More is more in my mind, but we'll see. But yeah, I think one of the things that is in the near pursuit is how do we incorporate properties that have commercial hauling into regular composting programs. And I don't know if that means that the district has to take it on. Perhaps it's that, you know, we require it or we incent it. But otherwise, there's a whole segment of our population that doesn't have the opportunity to reduce the amount of landfill waste they're producing. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Patel. Okay. You were talking about Snow's Court, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and they didn't have their snow cleared at all?
You know what? I believe they didn't, but I know Mr. Crane is going to be testifying this hearing later on. So I
Okay,
don't want to say the wrong thing, but I would ask him specifically.
okay.
He just texted me, he said no.
Oh, no, okay. And what did you mean by their designation needs to be changed?
From my understanding, in one of our last ANC2A meetings, even though Snow's Court is designated as like colloquially, it's known as a residential alley, it's not officially designated as a residential alley. And they have stated to the councilwoman's office, Councilwoman Pinto's office, that that's the reason why they're not getting services, that they're not built into that map, if that makes sense. And so Mr. Crane, along with me and Commissioner Comer, actually, Mr. Crane covered the Snow's Court aspect, but we talked about the fact that we would need that designation. And Councilmember Allen did commit to working with Councilwoman Pinto to make sure that a lot of the issues that impact Snow's Court would start to be being mitigated as far as other issues that they have. But that was specifically told to us, and that the designation would have to come from the council end. So I don't know if it has to go to a vote, but that's what we were told.
Is that a DPW designation or a DDOT road type?
I am not sure, because it seems like everybody is saying it belongs, like different agencies are telling us that that's the designation that they need. I don't know if it's a designation to the agency or if it's just an entire designation. And the only other ward that has residential alleys at the rate that it does is Councilmember Charles Allen's. So I knew he was very understanding of what I and Mr. Crane had brought to his attention. He understood that. And, you know, he said, yeah, get the designation changed. So we would love your assistance on that as well. You know, if an ANC2A resolution is needed for that, I'm more than happy to put that forward, you know, from our end, or if we need a resolution to request the council do this, we'll also do that as well. We just need to know what to do, or I need to know what to do.
Did anybody put that in writing?
No, this was said in a recorded meeting. I can send your team that recording.
Okay. I just need to know what we're asking for.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Okay. Got it. Off topic for you, but on topic for me. Commissioner Patel, how would you feel if GW campus police had parking enforcement authorities?
I'm going to speak just for me, not the commission. I don't think that would be an issue for my residents, to be honest. It's my residents that actually end up having to deal with fighting for parking between, I think it's my SMD and Commissioner Comer's SMD. He represents the Watergate / Kennedy Center area. And it seems to be really egregious if the Kennedy Center has events. And, we'll have people just park in our neighborhoods with like no kind of tags or anything. And, it just becomes a nightmare, and parking is already very scarce in ANC 2A, in pockets of ANC 2A.
So we are definitely considering this as part of a bill in our committee right now to enhance parking enforcement resources, and have been discussing it with other universities. So feel free to shop that one around a little bit. But we had a hearing on it, and DPW was a little hesitant. But I think that it could be beneficial in areas that have the resource.
Okay. Councilwoman Nadeau, would it be all right if someone from your team sent me that paperwork or the materials around that hearing? That way I can go ahead and review it and, share it with the rest of my commission colleagues.
Happy to do that. Thank you for the offer.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Bishop Henchman, has anyone ever responded to the ANC 5F resolution on this?
From DPW, no.
Okay.
And we've done 2 resolutions on it at this point also.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We've done 2 resolutions, one last year and then one early last year, one late last year.
Okay. Do you think the legal responsibility we already have for adjacent owners to clear sidewalks should also apply to the trail?
I don't know. And I think somebody mentioned this earlier. They did a good job with the trail this last snowstorm.
Okay.
It was completely clear. It's just once you get up the stairs and try to cross the bridge, that's where you ran into issues. So trail was a problem last year, but this year was pretty good. I'm not quite sure who did it between DDOT and DPW. I know Mr. Israel talked about that's an area of uncertainty, but whoever did it did a good job. Hopefully they'll both take credit for it.
Any other thoughts on public restrooms as we consider making it a permanent program?
We ought to have a lot more all over the city. I know other cities have a human waste problem. I haven't heard that too much about DC, but I'd rather not wait for it to get to that point before we start thinking about more restrooms available. And I know Starbucks has now changed their policy corporate-wide about free use of restrooms for non-customers. It's good that they were providing a public amenity at their bottom line rather than the public's bottom line, but now maybe we need to step up.
All right. Well, thank you very much to this panel. I appreciate all your testimony, and we will we'll be discussing these issues with DPW when they testify. Thank you. All right, let's see. Next panel includes Jamila White, Commissioner from 8A, Paula Edwards, who's the chairperson of ANC 4A, Will Crane, Vice President of the Foggy Bottom Association, Joey Davis, President of AFG Local 1975, Sabrina Rhodes, Seth Grimes, Washington Area Bicyclist Association, Michael Hayes, Board of Directors, DuPont East Civic Association, Civic Action Association, Kathy Henderson, Coordinator of 5D Court Watch, Kenneth Durrell, and Jean Smith. Okay. We do have one person testifying in person because we did not appropriately connect, get the message that we were hybrid. I think it makes sense to simply have him go first, logistically. So ask Mr. Davis to go ahead and deliver your testimony here in the chamber.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairperson Nadeau, and members of the committee and residents of the District of Columbia. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the hardworking unionized employees of the Department of Public Works. My name is Joey Davis. I am the president of Local 1975. In addition to our DPW employees, we also represent DDOT, DMV, Department of For-Hire Vehicles, and some civilian employees at MPD. So together, our members truly keep DC moving forward. I'm here to raise serious concerns about the agency's response to City Council's inquiries, ongoing safety failures, and unacceptable working conditions that put the health and safety of our members at risk. Despite these glaring issues, DPW's responses to us suggest no substantial reforms or urgency in addressing these longstanding hazards. They include, but are not limited to, inadequate snow operations, which were, unfortunately, a preventable disaster. DPW's failure to properly prepare for snow events has resulted in significant operational inefficiencies and employee injuries. Several issues could have been prevented well before the first snowfall. For instance, none of the parking lots or vehicle fleets were properly prepared for snow, leading to avoidable injuries among DPW employees. And at one point, our DPW employees actually had to go across the street from the 15th Street location to get salt from another facility in order to clear the parking lot so that other employees could actually report to work. Dome lights in the salt domes were non-functional, as well as the exhaust systems. These issues were reported by employees far prior to the snowfall that occurred. However, DPW has not yet outlined a clear plan for resolving these or the issues related to its vehicle fleet, such as all the new electric vehicles which did not charge because of the cold weather. There is also a significant lack of safety oversight within DPW's Fleet Management Administration, which allowed workers to be exposed to risks that could have been avoided with basic preventative measures. DPW's failure to address these issues before the winter season highlights a clear pattern of neglect and mismanagement. It is unacceptable that employees must risk their health and safety due to the agency's lack of planning, when all they are trying to do is report to work to ensure that the residents of the District of Columbia themselves can remain safe. We also want to draw Council's attention to the deteriorating conditions at the 15th Street facility. The conditions at DPW's 15th Street facility are nothing short of inhumane. Employees are forced to work in dilapidated and unsafe conditions, which DPW has either failed or is unable to remediate. These include doors that will not open, leaving employees stranded out in the cold; leaking roofs, which continue to expose workers to unsafe work environments; non-functioning heating systems in portions of the building, which force employees to endure extreme cold and violate basic workplace safety standards. Most concerningly, there's also a mold problem that has created significant health hazards, with no clear commitment from DPW as to how to fix these structural concerns. These issues are not new, and DPW has provided no credible plan to address these ongoing hazards. The agency's lack of urgency shows a complete disregard for the well-being of its workforce. We also believe DPW has provided inconsistent responses to the questions posed by City Council. The agency's responses show a lack of transparency and accountability, including downplaying the number of vacant positions and understaffing issues that directly affect constituent services. They've provided conflicting information about fleet readiness and safety improvements that contradict the experiences of frontline workers. And they've failed to address repeated concerns raised by employees regarding hazardous working conditions. We demand that DPW provide clear, truthful, and actionable responses about how it plans to rectify these failures moving forward. In our opinion, several things need to change, and we are calling on the DC Council to take immediate action by mandating that DPW address all of its safety failures, including the removal of all hazardous vehicles that must be immediately be repaired or taken out of service, conducting a full assessment of working conditions at the 15th Street facility, and ensuring that those repairs are undertaken with DGS or private contractors without delay. And we also ask that Council holds DPW accountable for potentially misleading responses, and that it requires real workforce safety plans before the next winter season comes into place. We also want to draw council's attention to the fact that the current ticketing system is oppressive. For instance, individual residents who may be struggling to pay registration fees because they lost their job in March cannot afford registration fees after receiving $1,500 tickets for not being able to renew their registration in the first place. The hardworking men and women of DPW deserve safe working conditions, honest leadership, and a commitment to addressing workplace hazards before they become life-threatening emergencies. Council must take action to ensure that DPW can no longer ignore the safety concerns of its workforce. I thank you, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Will Crane is next.
Good morning. My name is, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss DPW today. It's a pleasure to speak with you, Councilmember Nadeau. My name is Will Crane, and I am the Vice President of the Foggy Bottom Association. I've been a resident of SMD 2A03 since 1999, living in Snow's Court, a residential alley in the heart of Foggy Bottom. I've worked many years to make my home a better place for my family, friends, and neighbors. And despite numerous attempts to resolve ongoing issues, I am now testifying for only my second time in front of council to share these persistent challenges we face with DPW services. In preparation for this hearing, I reviewed email correspondence with DPW dating back to 2008, and they all address the same ongoing problems. To provide some context, Snow's Court is a residential alley built in 1884, just 9 feet wide, and our front doors open directly onto public space, much like Glick Court in your district. This is one of over 30 alley homes in Foggy Bottom. Many residents, including myself, face challenges with rat-chewed containers located so close to our front doors and the overall trash collection process, particularly incomplete collections and spillage at our front doors. One recent incident involved a rat that ran up my neighbor's arm as she tried to place out her cans for the 5th time after weeks of missed collections in January. In fact, we only had one trash collection in January 2025. One DPW supervisor told me that perhaps it was the residents to blame for the rats, suggesting we mix bleach and ammonia to keep our cans clean. Truly some toxic guidance. I've submitted a spreadsheet in my testimony showing a small number of 311 requests I've made for rat replacement containers, with some requests only being resolved after 400 days. This is not a rare or isolated experience. It is only when I escalate the issue through public meetings or by contacting the Ward 2 Council office that any action is taken. Despite the creation of the Snow's Court Multi-Agency Task Force by Councilmember Pinto in August 2023, service delays persist. Our requests to participate in a pilot program to improve service have been repeatedly denied without explanation. I respectfully urge you to hold DPW leadership accountable and request that they prioritize the following. Policy. Recognize the difference between a commercial alley and a residential alley. Work with community leaders to source rat-proof containers suitable for small-scale historic districts and create an alley-dwelling solid waste policy that respects our status as full tax-paying citizens, as well as simply residents calling this place home. Provide clear posted collection dates and rules directly on the containers with a QR code, and ask DPW why it takes over a year to fulfill rat replacement container requests when health and safety are at risk in our residential alleys. Snow clearance. When Snowmageddon hit in 2010, Snow's Court went without trash collection for months because the collection trucks could not navigate the alley. Ice and snow remained well into the spring, creating hazardous and unsanitary conditions. The situation was truly unbearable. Despite efforts by Councilmember Jack Evans' office to work with DPW, no resolution was reached. DPW policy clearly states that no snow clearance is provided for any alley, which continues to leave residents in unsafe conditions for extended periods of time. We request that residential alleys be given surface treatment and snow clearance just as our street neighbors receive to ensure equitable, safe, and sanitary passage during winter weather events. Leaf collection. Snow's Court is home to many large heritage trees, but DPW consistently refuses to conduct leaf pickup operations. Although the alley is 30 feet wide, DPW claims their equipment will not fit. Bags of leaves that residents collected in December are still untouched and have broken open. And as we continue to wait for possible service that may come. Additionally, as alley residents, we are unable to request alley cleaning for 6 months out of the year, as 311 does not accept requests during that time. We request that residential alleys receive leaf collections and alley clearings available year-round. In the interest of time, my closing statement, thank you to DPW workers who work on the ground and serve us so well. They're great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Jamila White has now joined us on the panel, so I'm going to allow her to give her testimony.
Thank you, Council Member. Let me just get on camera.
There you are.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Greetings from the heart of DC, the Great War 8 Anacostia. Happy Black History Month to everyone. I am Jamila White. I serve as the ANC Commissioner for 8A05 and the Chair of ANC 8A, proudly representing the Anacostia community. Our community stands as a historical beacon of freedom, innovation, and unity, embodying a legacy of resilience and determination deeply rooted in our culture and history. As such, we've been designated as the district's only arts and culture district. This proud legacy is often overshadowed by systemic disinvestment and persistent inequities. Our community is confronted with several and severe disparities that threaten our thriving. Far too often, we are being treated as a dumping grounds, resulting in environmental violations being left unchecked, and the beauty of our community being marred by this neglect. This illegal dumping comes from several sources. Irresponsible contractors who discard debris in our public spaces, absentee landlords who fail to provide proper waste management on their sites, and from individuals mainly outside of our community who treat Anacostia as a convenient dumping ground from them, where they're coming and dumping in our alleys, in our woods, in our green spaces, everything from litter to boats to mattresses and more. We've been tirelessly submitting 311 requests and working with DPW and other agencies for support. However, the issue is continuing to worsen. Environmental crime is rampant and is not being addressed in the same way we see it being addressed in wealthier communities west of the Anacostia River. I do want to acknowledge Inspector Terry Briscoe, a true asset to our community. Literally, she's a fairy godmother, cleaning, ticketing, and advocating for us. However, her tireless efforts alone are not enough to address the scale of this problem and the entire community's environmental needs. We need DPW to take a bold, proactive measures to prevent illegal dumping in our alleyways and green spaces, including regular cleanups and stronger enforcement. We demand that DPW and DOB come together to hold landlords accountable for maintaining proper waste management on their properties, so to ensure that their residents are not left with any other choice but to dump in the trash and alleyways, or yet just dump in the backyards of those buildings. We've been asking for a community walk with the DPW director and for him to attend our ANC meetings for almost a year now. Yet we have not been able to secure his direct attention. We understand that he is extremely busy and the district's commitment to equity should ensure that communities like ours, who's been disinvested and marginalized, are centered and prioritized. We want to strengthen our relationship with DPS and are asking for your support for a genuine environmental improvement plan for our community, one that could be piloted and maybe modeled throughout the rest of Ward 8 when it comes to real environmental justice investments and programming. We ask that with this plan, there's a community advisory board set up to ensure that the voices of our community are included and also are driving the solutions and part of accountability. We're asking for real action to be taken and for that our community to get the same attention and resources as other neighborhoods. We deserve to live in a community that is addressing environmental issues, no matter where we live, and our zip code should not determine the support that we get from 311 and from DPW. Council member, I just want to thank you for your service and your deep commitment to social and racial justice. I know that you understand that environmental justice is social and racial justice, and we need that to realize the future that we deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We'll now hear from Sabrina Rhodes.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Councilmember and Chair Nadeau, DPW staff and witnesses. My name is Sabrina Rhodes. I'm a community organizer with Empower DC and also ANC Commissioner 5DO2 here in Ivy City. I appreciate the opportunity to allow me to testify. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to recognize and commend our Ward 5 DPW Inspector Brooks Garrett, who has gone above and beyond to combat the persistent issue of illegal dumping in our historic Ivy City community. Her dedication is truly appreciated, but this ongoing illegal dumping issue must be addressed at a broader level, as was said before me. If there is a way to deter individuals from treating our community as their personal dumping ground, I'm eager to listen and support meaningful solutions. Court dates and fines aren't working alone. One of my primary concerns relates to the DPW parking lots that are housed right here in Ivy City. According to the Ivy City Small Area Plan, the Oakey Street DPW lot is set to be relocated. As this process moves forward, I strongly urge DPW and the council to ensure that impacted communities are included in decisions. Ward 5 is already oversaturated with industrial facilities, and Ivy City continues to bear the burden of pollution and toxins, leading to critical low and toxic air quality. We can't afford any more environmental degradation in our communities. I also have questions regarding DPW's role in reporting illegal dumpings. This is just a question, are DPW's employees allowed or permitted to report illegal dumping incidents and submit 311 requests? Inspector Brooks Garrett has done so herself and has given fines for overflowing dumpsters. But what about the workers who come in and out of the Ivy City lot daily? Since the modification of the 311 website, submitting reports online with the photos has become challenging, I have personally experienced difficulties in submitting requests and have had to rely on calling, have had to call the request in which I can include a photo. As a result, I had to report this to the Councilmember Parker's office, which Oliver Stout and our Ward 5 Mocha, Christian Starville, has put in the reports for us and has also came in the community and saw the trash and the dumpings. Given that our community has been designated an illegal dumping hotspot, proper cameras are needed, and it is critical that DPW employees, in addition to residents, are empowered to report these incidents. I ask for clarity on whether reporting must come solely from residents or if DPW workers can also contribute to these efforts. Additionally, we are facing a growing issue with private property owners neglecting to hire proper trash collection services. Apparently, this is an issue all over the city, and that needs to be addressed. Overflowing dumpsters are not only an environmental hazard, but also a major contributor to rodent infestations, creating public health risks for our community. Last year, I testified on the issue of illegal idling. This year, my focus is on ensuring that wherever DPW plans to relocate, it is not within Ward 5, and that DPW employees actively report illegal dumping instead of ticketing residents and their guests in front of our homes, and that we receive definitive answers regarding reporting responsibilities. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to working together on these critical issues.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your testimony. We have now been joined by Commissioner Paula Edwards for her testimony on this panel. Commissioner Edwards, you may go ahead.
Thank you. My video is not working still, so I'll just testify. Hello, Chair Nadeau. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Paula Edwards, Chair of ANC 4A, Commissioner of ANC 4A01, Shepherd Park, Colonial Village, and North Portal Estates. I'm a native Washingtonian who grew up in Shepherd Park, which I now represent. I believe that DPW is the most important agency in DC government insofar as the breadth of scope. I've totaled the 311 requests in my SMD over the past year, and DPW requests far outstrip all others. Director McGaffin of OUC offered the same observation about DPW requests citywide. My first interaction with DPW as a commissioner began with my dragging a deer carcass out of the driveway of a vacant home onto the street so that it could be collected. DPW came promptly and removed the carcass. My second interaction was with a car that had been abandoned for 4 years without being towed. Once we alerted the proper people, the car was towed within a few hours. DPW has since towed several cars and trucks that have plagued our streets for years. I would like to thank DPW for its public outreach. Randy Thorpe regularly sends us communications and updates. She, Director Spriggs, Mr. Gaither, and other DPW staff with whom I have communicated have been responsive and have worked with me to solve problems, including clearing dangerous intersections clogged by snow and prioritizing streets that had not been plowed. I have found the trash and recycling collection teams to be efficient and helpful. DPW's Rodent Academy was extremely beneficial and helped me to organize a successful rat abatement effort in my SMD, in which we coordinated with DPW enforcement, DOH, and commercial and residential property owners. To date, we have not seen a rat in the area in at least 6 months. I'm very impressed with DPW's composting program and their 21st century approach to waste management and best practices from other jurisdictions. My SMD has had a recurrent problem with recycling collections over several years. This was exacerbated during the snowstorm. Leaf collections have also been spotty, perhaps because our SMD is so large and we have so many trees. We have many damaged trash cans, and replacement is confusing to residents. We also have a problem with DPW requests being closed without the orders being fulfilled. This results in frustration for residents and overburdening of the OUC system with multiple requests for the same complaint being entered. I've found that direct contact with agency staff is far preferable to the 311 system as far as getting results. My neighborhoods border on Silver Spring, and we are very much affected by out-of-state residential drivers who use our streets as free parking lots. I echo Mr. Eckenweiler's concerns about PEMA. In light of the recent reductions in parking minima in both DC and Montgomery County, this will become even more of an issue. Our proximity to Rock Creek Park makes us a target for illegal dumping on federal and district land, and the confusion over jurisdiction only adds to the problems. I will expand on other experiences with the agency in my written testimony. Thank you for listening to my testimony, and I am available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn to Seth Grimes.
Thank you, Chair Nadeau. Should have video. Here we go. Thank you, Chair Nadeau, and good afternoon to everyone who is listening to today's hearing or watching it. I am Seth Grimes. I am Washington, D.C. organizer with Washington Area Bicyclist Association. I'm speaking on behalf of our 5,000 members and nearly 25,000 regional advocacy supporters. We appreciate the opportunity to testify on this occasion. We'll also presume to testify to speak for the 18,000 DC residents who bike to work on a daily basis, according to Go DC Go, the District Department of Transportation Sustainable Transportation Initiative. There are over 6 million capital bike share rides taken in 2024 and over 8 million trips, excluding capital bike share, from other micromobility providers. And of course, the district is home to many, many thousands of other bicyclists. My testimony is going to repeat concerns that you heard about from especially the first panel, but I'll tell some stories to help flesh out the situation. The district's bicyclists and micromobility users rely on and value the city's bike lane and trail network. We deserve safe, well-maintained infrastructure, which, related to DPW responsibilities, means bike lanes clear of leaves, debris, illegally stopped or parked vehicles, and snow and ice. Bike lane obstructions are hazardous and often dangerously force riders into motor vehicle traffic lanes and onto the sidewalk. We quote a message sent by a member to WABA on January 18th. DC and the National Park Service have made minimal effort to ensure that all the bike lanes are rideable after the recent snowstorm. Today, the bike lanes on 11th Street have ice on them. The bike track on 15th Street has a 3-foot-tall mound of snow that was left by a plow. The bike track at Haynes Point, of course, that's NPS, has ice and snow on the west side. The bike lanes on Q, R, and T streets have ice patches. Another member wrote us on January 30. First and top of mind at the moment, it has been approaching 3 full weeks since the primary snowfall of the winter, and there are still bike lanes with ice built up in them. This snowfall has been a massive failure of the responsible agencies and really disheartening as both a pedestrian and a cyclist. We know, switching to leaf clutter in bike lanes, that DPW has stepped up bike lane leaf and debris clearing. DPW responded to committee questions stating that the department deploys 8 bike lane sweepers and tackles awards lanes each week in rotation and also responds to clearing requests. But all the same, here's what another WABA member wrote us on November 12th, quote, I rely on the New Mexico Avenue Northwest cycle track to get to work. Right now it is hazardous. There are so many piles of leaves that it seems implausible that nearby homeowners are not dumping the leaves from their yards into it. What's the correct order of operations to get to the correct screen, on 311 to report the issue for this and other matters? So this year, again, we ask, as my colleague Alyssa Proudfoot Siegel asked you last year, to ask DPW to take a proactive approach during leaf season and winter weather and plan for multiple passes. Leaves can make bike lanes hazardous by hiding large debris and create traction issues when wet. DPW leaf crews do a thorough job, but a more timely response is needed. We ask you again to create a dedicated 311 service request for bike lane sweeping, snow and ice clearing, and for trail maintenance. If a resident does take time to call or file a request, the effort should be rewarded with action, not a closed ticket because they could not find the appropriate service category. Next, enforcement. Person who wrote WABA about uncleared snow after 3 weeks also wrote, I live along the new Columbia Road lanes. There's a proliferation of mopeds, motorcycles, food delivery drivers using bike lanes as a means of dodging in and out of traffic. It's only a matter of time before one of those people kills a cyclist. It hasn't happened already. It is also a common occurrence to find a car that has somehow found its way into a bike lane. Greater enforcement really, I think, is a key. We agree, but we note that according to the DPW statistics offered before the hearing, the number of stop-stand bike lane citations issued has decreased from 2,105 in FY22 to just 1,684 in FY24. We want redoubled enforcement efforts. There's also a question of scofflaws and the funds there. So in conclusion, we've identified 3 issues: clearing snow and ice from bike lanes, the need for stepped-up seasonal leaf clearing from bike lanes, as well as the service request system, and concerns about insufficient enforcement addressing vehicles stop, stand, or parking in a bike lane. So we ask the committee, the council, and the Department of Public Works, in cooperation with other city agencies, to energetically address these concerns. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Michael Hayes.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. I'm testifying on behalf of the DuPont East Civic Action Association. The Washingtonian magazine wrote that, quote, DC has finally claimed the title of the rat capital of the United States. CNN noted that even among the rattiest cities identified in a recent study, DC, quote, stood out. It had 1.5 times greater growth in rat populations than New York City. DC rat complaints rose from over 1,400 in 2010 to over 12,000 in 2021, and even this huge number understates the problem. Why is this problem so bad in DC? Over 2.5 years ago, DECA submitted a letter to the DC government showing through photographic evidence that the plastic trash cans that DPW continues to use throughout DC provide a ready food source for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of rats, because the rats can easily chew through them. I submitted numerous photographs of DC supplied plastic trash cans in my record submission that the rats have chewed through. In some blocks, it's almost every single can. I would refer those attending this hearing to those photos in my record submission in Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 that show how pervasive this problem is. These photographs are stark evidence of DPW's failures in procurement and use of these trash cans. This failure ensures the propagation of more rats and severely undermines any attempt at controlling the rat population. Pest control companies report that efforts to poison rats with bait traps are ineffective when such ready sources of food exist in trash cans. The rats prefer the food in the trash cans to the bait in the traps. Why should the rats eat at McDonald's when they can eat at the Palm? This exploding rat population creates a huge public health crisis. Rats are associated with more than 50 pathogens that affect people, have huge mental health impacts on people living around them, and cause extensive property damage. There are even news articles reporting on rats attacking babies, including one where an infant was found nearly eaten alive by rats. Surely DC residents should not have to await such tragedies before the DC Council will take action. In light of this public health crisis and the property damage that rats are causing, what has DPW done to address this problem of ineffective trash cans? The answer? Absolutely nothing. DPW appears to be of the view that a rodent-proof trash can is not available. This is simply false. Numerous sources report that rats cannot chew through hard metals such as steel. Is such a steel trash can available? Again, the answer is yes. A quick look at various websites shows, among other items, the Barron Steel 1-gallon trash can that is, quote, rodent-proof, end quote. DPW could have solicited such steel cans with wheels and a hinged lid and a larger metal can as well. It did none of these things. Its failure to do so is literally inexplicable. What are the next steps to ameliorate this problem? DPW supplies trash cans for and picks up the trash of residential buildings with fewer than 4 units. DC should require DPW to conduct a new solicitation for steel rat-proof cans. DC must require DPW to provide these rat-proof cans to areas most heavily affected by rats and to begin the process of substituting the rat-proof trash cans in areas for all the clearly inadequate ones they now distribute. There is another remedial action that can be done expeditiously without requiring additional funding. DPW does not pick up trash from commercial establishments such as restaurants who conduct with private companies to pick them up. Restaurants pose a very significant problem as an extremely large source of food for rats. The DCMR requires restaurants to have metal trash cans, but many restaurants are violating this section and instead using plastic cans that rats have chewed through. I know this because I have seen it at multiple restaurants. DPW should immediately conduct a survey of all restaurants to identify those using plastic trash cans and require them to comply with the law. Also, many of these trash cans that are supplied by commercial establishments have plastic roofs, plastic lids, which is again contrary to the regulations, and rats chew right through those. Finally, DECA again requests an immediate hearing before the City Council to address this problem. In conclusion, I would say the DC rat crisis is intolerable. Residents have reported that rats have gotten in the walls of their residences where it's impossible to get rid of them. Others have reported that when they go to the place trash in their trash cans, the rats jump out. And the constant threat of these rats is a mental anguish to many DC residents. Many of these rats are over a foot long with very large and sharp teeth. I submitted a photo in my record submission that I took of a dead rat in the alley between T Street and Willer Streets Northwest, including the tail. It is 1 foot 4 inches long. I submitted also a close-up of the same rat showing his large and sharp teeth. Can you imagine having to deal with these rats on a daily basis, worrying about them invading your home? Depriving the rats of ready food supplies will severely limit the number of rats in DC. The DC Council must act. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Kathy Henderson.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Nadeau, Commissioner Kathy Henderson. I've served 11 terms as the commissioner for 5B10, 5D05, and 5D06. My most recent term ended on December 2024. I'm holding up a picture of Inspector Jackie Brooks Garrett. She is the inspector assigned to my area. We pay her in excess of $80,000 per year, and she's closed out the majority of the 396 service requests that I put in without action, with comments like nothing's found. I have inundated you and your staff with multiple pages and photographs of trash that has been left behind that Inspector Brooks says that nothing was found. And I'm holding up this picture again, if you can see it. She's actually in front of a voting box, taking election material out of the voting boxes following the June 4th primary, in accordance with an MOU with the Board of Elections. So she can't even do her job with DPW, yet she has time to collect voting material from the Board of Elections. Something's not right here. If I were to give DPW a grade at this date, it would be an F- for the abysmal failures. These are some photos that I'm holding up that I hope you can see. Trash that has been there. Miss Adura has these pictures, same request. This is salt covered trash that has been there before my term ended. This is more trash, and I'll be glad to send you these in my extensive testimony before this important committee. DPW is one of the most important agencies in our city, right up there with public safety. And they can't even pick up trash consistently throughout our city. I want to know why we're continuing to tolerate these segregated services that we're all entitled to, that we're not getting. I'm pretty sure you will never hear from anyone on Unicorn Lane. You'll never hear from anyone on Prospect Street, or the other places where DPW panders in Spring Road. My neighbors in Spring Valley, they tell me all the time how the DPW workers are so nice. They pander to them. We don't get that. We've had improvements in past years. Inspector Armistead, Mr. May, they've come out. They've made efforts over the years. All of those benefits and service improvements that we have enjoyed have completely eroded under Mr. Spriggs' leadership of the agency, or shall I say the lack of leadership. We're paying this man close to $200,000 a year, and this is what we have. Just trash, and more trash. And this is even trash from some of my neighbors in Ward 8. And I don't have to tell you about what's going on with the lack of leadership on the council there. This is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. It is beyond unacceptable. And I also have an address for Mr. Spriggs on 38th Avenue in Hyattsville. So I'd like to know, is he in fact a Maryland resident, or does he live in the District of Columbia as he is required to do so as an agency director? Any modest successes that DPW has enjoyed regarding trash, snow removal, or leaves, it's a modicum. It's not acceptable. They're not doing the job that we pay them to do. They're burdening your committee with multiple complaints, and they're failing to get the job done. This is unacceptable. Where's the city administrator? Where is the mayor? Where is the chief of staff demanding an end to segregated, selective service that this agency is providing? This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And whether I'm a commissioner or not, I will continue to care deeply about this city and its residents. And I want to see improvement. We all demand improvement. And I think you will hear from the rest of the residents more complaints of the same. DPW has failed the citizens of the District of Columbia. And Mr. Spriggs, when he comes forward, you should ask him to submit his resignation because he is an ineffective director and we deserve better. And with that, I conclude. And if you want to ask me any questions, certainly I'm available.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Kenneth Jarrell.
Good afternoon. Let me make sure I'm set up properly. This was, I must say, after hearing some of the testimony so far, I do wonder why I remain living in the district. These stories are hard to hear, but I will start with my testimony. My question to DPW is, how can I, as a DC resident, help to improve safety, public safety workers, such as the Department of Public Works, Parking Enforcement Administration patrols? In February 2024, I testified at this hearing, the one last year, and I spoke about PEMA's unwillingness to enforce parking on my block, the 700 block of Gresham Place Northwest. My ANC 1E, followed up with a resolution on July 24th, 2024, to address the issues, and still lack of enforcement, but it is partly due to safety concerns. So what is PEMA doing to resolve its safety concerns so that it can protect its officers and therefore enforce regulations on my street and other places? How can I, as a DC resident, support this effort? On January 29, 2025, PEMA responded to a parking service request that I made with the following statement: "We are relaxing enforcement in the area due to excessive violence. Please contact the Metropolitan Police Department for safety violations only." PEMA has responded to requests on my block with this message since at least March 17th, 2023. I've, in my statement for my testimony, attached a list of about 60 times that PEMA has responded with that. If this is a public safety issue for PEMA officers, why is it still unresolved after 2 years? In response to PEMA's lack of response, I've worked with MPD's 3rd District Commander and Karen Gall, the chairperson of the MPD's 3rd District Citizens Advisory Council, to engage with MPD. MPD has been a willing partner in public safety. Additionally, I've worked with your office, Councilperson Nadeau, and I want to thank Estelle McKinney for being great to work with over the past 2 years, but my problems are ongoing. I know that your office worked with DPW's Deputy Director, Anthony Crispino, to coordinate parking patrols on my block in July, but I heard no report of success or failure from this. In October 2024, I contacted MPD for a similar issue, and they worked with Mr. Crispino as well, but the problem is still ongoing. I still get these responses. How can I help? That's my offer. It's gone well so far to work with MPD, but the issues are still unresolved. And clearly, this issue of how DPW operates is far broader than me. And I have to ask, why do I still live here? So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from Jean Smith.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Councilmember Nadeau. I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you, and I want to thank also the members of my fellow citizens that have stepped up. And so that we have an opportunity to provide some input on DPW operations in my neighborhood to both DPW Director Spriggs as well as DPW staff. In general, I find the DPW staff does an excellent job. I've been very impressed every time I've seen them working. I have had the opposite experience actually with Director Spriggs. My name is Jean Smith. I'm currently a Ward 6 resident. I have been a resident of the District of Columbia for more than 30 years. I love my city. After a career traveling the world, I tell people all the time that DC is my favorite city in the entire world. When you talk about the museums, monuments, parks, bike share, metro systems to get around, the National Mall, there's such beauty and grace here. But sometimes I think it's a one-way affair that I am having with DC. My request is simple: organized, systematic, timely leaf collection and yard waste collection by DPW in November and December for leaves and throughout the year for yard waste. My experience living in close-in Capitol Hill, the 100 block of D Street since 1997, is our leaves were properly collected as scheduled 2 times in more than 25 years. I understand part of the problem, but there seems to be no excuse. I've tried likely avenues to remedy the problem. I've called 311. I've called my council member Allen. I've asked the director at DPW. I called your office, council member Nadeau. I use self-help a lot to deal with this issue. My husband and I rake leaves from the street all up and down our block. We put the leaves into piles. We make them easier to pick up. We've shoveled leaves into large brown yard bags when the leaves got crushed by parked cars. We've encouraged our neighbors to also bag the leaves to contain them. Right now, there are 18 bags of leaves on my block uncollected since December 2024. And I'll use a similar thing showing this is 10 leaves and 10 bags of leaves since December 2024. And then there's a second in the back, 3 bags. Further down the block, there's an additional 5 bags. I am going to say that there is a comment made by Colbert King this week. Home rule is under threat again. This time it's different. We need to do something to make us look like we are the competent, well-managed, well-governed city that we say we are. I'm prepared to give answers to any questions. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony. I think I'm going to go in reverse order, just change things up a little bit. So Ms. Smith, I really appreciate your testimony. I was working with a constituent on this issue recently, and I think there's some confusion about leaf collection. So during leaf season, they don't collect leaves in the bags. And if you want bags collected, you actually have to put in a request for yard waste, which you can do year round.
We do.
Okay, but then those bags actually have to go where your trash is collected, which for some people is not out front.
That's never something we've been told. In fact, we've been told that the leaves are collected and they're not. And as I believe it was Miss Edwards had commented, it's so inefficient to put the leaves out and then to get told, how did we do? And then get told that it's not done and we have to start all over again. And
absolutely.
This is partly the result of we bagged up the leaves when DPW did not collect them.
I gotcha. So, like I said, I helped a constituent with this last week, and what we did was, because the leaves were bagged at this point, had her move them to the regular collection point and put in that 311 request for yard waste collection. They can take 6 bags at a time. So if you have neighbors that want to collaborate, they could each take 6 bags and put in that 311 request. Once that's done, I'm happy to help escalate it for collection. But the leaf team that comes around seasonally they don't take them out of bags. They can only use, they're using like the vacuum and the rakes. And
they don't do that here. They do not do that here. Since 2000, since 1997, when I moved in here, our leaves have been collected by raking on the street 2 times. 2 times. I have an ongoing relationship with my council member's constituent services representative, Kimberly Kennedy. She knows me my name. She says, wow, I didn't get your call this year yet. I said, that's because I was hoping maybe if it didn't happen in November, it would happen in December. It doesn't happen. We do not get our leaves collected. We have all these visitors to Congress. We have a hotel. We have a metro at either end of our block. All these international visitors see this unkept, uncollected leaves, and it happens every single year. It is block after block after block after block on Capitol Hill. It's awful. It looks, excuse the expression, third world. It is just not done here. Very frustrating.
I would suggest not using that expression, actually. But so I'm very sorry to hear that, and happy to work with you in the future on getting the leaves vacuumed after they're raked to the front. But given where we are right now, if you'd like to work together on the alternative with the yard waste collection, feel free to follow that process that I mentioned, and we'd be happy to assist with it.
We'll do that. We'll move the leaves down to the corner and put in some calls by ourselves and our neighbors.
That sounds great.
Do that within the next couple of days.
Sounds
Thank you
perfect.
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Drell, thank you for continuing to participate in this process. I really appreciate it. I know that it's been really frustrating. And I have a sense from working with you, you're still there, that you've, you're sympathetic to the safety concerns being expressed. And, one of the things we really just need to crack is being able to figure out how to get MPD out there when DPW is ticketing. But I think also one of the things that is going on here is that we're trying to address a public safety issue through parking enforcement, which can be a challenge. And it may just make sense to go back to the original, let's try to get MPD to address the drug sales on the block, rather than trying to use this other tool, although I wish that both would work. So happy to keep talking to you about that. And if you're here, has there been any change in incidents of crime in the block or in general? Okay, he may have moved on with his day. Ms. Henderson, thank you very much for your testimony. We can certainly follow up with you. Mr. Hayes, I'm certainly very concerned about rats and trash, as you might expect. Curious how much folks in your area are utilizing the compost program?
Not at all, as far as I know. But let me just say that you will never solve the rat problem. It's going to grow and grow and grow unless you can limit the amount of food that the rats get. And as long as the trash cans, you can chew right through them.
I understand. I heard that in your testimony, but the reason I ask is because the food waste program, the compost program, takes that food waste out of the green bins and puts it in the rat-proof containers that then are collected and go to the food waste program. And that's actually been really effective in my neighborhood, in my backyard, in reducing the amount of rats, because then you're cutting off their food source there. So it's definitely something I hope that your neighborhood will consider.
Well, I mean, I can also say that it's very difficult to enforce a total, stopping any food waste getting into these trash cans, because there's always food residue that's, on a pizza box, there's food residue in a can.
It's true, but we do see this is actually a significant intervention, so let's not minimize it. I mean, it is very important. Have you seen anywhere that has metal trash carts in municipalities?
I haven't researched the issue, but I know that, as I said, they are available, and they are rat-proof.
For residential collection that goes into trucks?
Well, I mean, the trucks are mechanically pick them up, so I don't see any reason why DPW couldn't solicit to an RFP a request for proposals and get them. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't do that.
Well, I'm just not sure it exists, and frankly, those are very heavy. So we could. No,
they're not really very heavy. As I said in my piece, that trash can that I pointed out was 8.7 pounds. as opposed to 16 pounds for the larger trash cans.
Okay.
So it's not really a weight problem. These are picked up mechanically. And so the weight, it's not a weight
So
problem.
they do exist for residential carts that actually can go and be lifted up on a truck?
Well, I provided an example of a trash can that does exactly that. It's a residential trash can. It's 31 gallons, 31-gallon trash can.
I cannot emphasize enough that the biggest challenge we have is food in those cans. So anyone who's listening today, I strongly encourage participation in any of our compost programs. We have not only the curbside pilot, which we hope to expand, but also the farmers markets and the new smart compost program that is starting, where residents can put their compost in any time of day in a convenient location. This is really the future of how we address rats. You know, I don't know how else to say it. Hey, do you know if any of your neighbors have utilized the trash can repair program at all?
Yeah, I have, and it doesn't work because they immediately chew right through them again.
Okay.
You're not going to solve this problem, in my view, by composting or by replacing trash cans. You're going to have to stop the rats from getting into the trash can.
So why don't you think we can solve it by composting?
Because I don't think that the residents are going to do that. You're not going to get uniform compliance with the composting. There's going to be, and as long as there's not uniform compliance, there's going to be a food source for the rats. There's going to be food residue that isn't going to be subject to composting. Rats are, even though the one that I pointed out there was 1.5 feet long, they still can survive on, they don't need like, a pound of food a day. So as long as you have some food residue, and as long as you don't get everybody on the whole block that's going to do it, you're not going to be able to solve the problem.
Well, I actually think we can solve a great deal of it if we reduce as much food waste as possible.
Well, certainly would help. I'm not saying it doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any city is ever going to have no rats. But also, like, how are we going to, let's say if we have metal bins and people aren't keeping them closed, you still have the same issue. So I think there's a lot of ways to attack this. I do believe very strongly in the one that is the best for our community and our environment and our budget, which is diverting as much food waste from our landfills as possible, which gets them out of the green cans. So I hope that your association will work with us on this, because we can definitely use more participation from your area. Thanks for your testimony. Appreciate it. Ms. Henderson, did you have something you wanted to say?
You're muted.
Yes. I just wanted to ask you, Ms. Nadeau, when you say that you're going to follow up with me, what exactly does that mean? I've already sent over 20 pages of photographs and documentation of closed service requests without action, service requests that were closed improperly, and nothing has been done. I've overwhelmed your email and Ms. Ardura's. What is different? What do you mean by you're going to follow up me? How is this going to change? The pictures that I showed you today they're the same pictures, now with salt that was added yesterday in reference to this impending snowstorm. So what is going to be different? Are you going to reach out to Kevin Donahue, our city administrator? Are you going to coordinate with him? Are we going to find Mr. Spriggs, who may live in Maryland? What are we going to do that's different? I'm happy to come here and share my thoughts with you, but I need to know how this is going to be resolved.
I'm happy to answer your question, which is
Thank you.
When you send us these, we do escalate them to DPW. That is the role that I have in oversight of DPW. You're welcome to send them to the city administrator, but the way that I escalate is through DPW. And yes, Mr. Spriggs does live in the District of Columbia. We have confirmed that he moved. Thank you for your testimony, as always. Okay, Mr. Grimes, thanks very much for your testimony. You probably know that I am a cyclist, a parent cyclist, and this weather's a little chilly for me, but I did bike to work today. Maybe regretted it a little bit. Need some better gloves. But in any case, I appreciate all your testimony, but also the messages that you shared from members. Have members reported back on responsiveness to requests to clear the bike lanes? And is there a difference between response time for snow versus leaves?
I regret that I am unable to answer those questions. I would say that people write to WABA. The people who do write to WABA are generally savvy. They know how to report things. You heard mention in my testimony of people contacting 311 and finding that usage frustrating. They write to us when they don't get the service they believe they merit from DDOT, from DPW, and so on. So I have not been in this role. I moved over from the Maryland organizer role. I've not been in this role in Washington, D.C. long enough to really be able to answer your questions further. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Appreciate it. We can continue working together on it. Have you found there are also issues with cleaning and clearing of other types of debris in bike lanes?
So I'm about to say something that is not a Washington, D.C. city responsibility, but rather the National Park Service. For instance, I personally observed in bike lanes on Suitland Parkway dead deer. And we do see that kind of thing in bike lanes, dead animals in particular, that don't get picked up. There's trash that I've personally experienced seeing in bike lanes, for instance, on Piney Branch Road in Ward 4. So yeah, there are issues keeping the bike lanes clear. I'll mention that the large reason that the cities deploy street sweepers is not only to have aesthetics, but to remove stuff that would otherwise go into storm drains and clog them up. And that if you don't clear the bike lanes, it also has that sort of effect of cluttering the storm drains.
Right. Makes perfect sense. And that is something that I advocated a lot around when I was on the ANC. So thank you for raising that impact on the stormwater. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rhodes, thank you for your testimony. Are there any other recommendations in the Ivy City small area plan that you want to highlight that might impact DPW?
The only thing that I would like to mention is that them being here is a negative impact on our air quality. We just need them to be relocated somewhere where outside of Ward 5. As everybody knows, Ward 5 is already overburdened with industrial uses. So, no, we need to speak further. There's no recommendations for DPW other than they're getting relocated. And we would like to be sitting at that table when all these decisions are being made.
Does their transition to electric vehicles help with your concerns at all?
How long is that going to take?
I don't have the answer to that. It is in progress.
Okay, well, it's not going to help then. No, it's not going to help.
Well, I mean, when it's complete, is it mainly the exhaust from the vehicles that's the concern for environmental quality?
With the entire fleet, we have 2 parking lots, as everyone knows, one on West Virginia and one on Oakey Street. So the entire fleet is here. And we just need some relief. And if they're going to relocate, we welcome that. We just want to know where they're going to relocate, and if it's going to, especially if it's going to be in a district, we need to know where they're going to relocate. But no, we need relief. We already have 2 parking lots here.
Okay, I gotcha. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I remember when I was on the ANC, the small area plan was my bread and butter. So it's great to be able to refer back to it. Okay. Were your issues with the new 311 site related to user friendliness, or could you simply not upload certain things?
Well, when they switched, I tried going online, which is what I do every time we have illegal dumping. I take the pictures and I submit them online. When they switched the format or whatever they did, when I couldn't even get on the site at all. And I tried to do it yesterday and I had an issue with getting on the site. So I don't know if it's just wonky or when the old format was just fine. I can do it from my phone. I can do it from my laptop. Now I just send the pictures to Oliver Stout or Christian Stargill and they're able to do it some kind of way. So I don't know if it's I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I just prefer to send pictures because as you can see, they speak in volume. So just calling it doesn't do any justice.
Understood. Thank you. Sorry to hear about that. Mr. Davis, thank you very much for joining us today. Can you please make sure you upload testimony into the HMS? Okay,
Absolutely.
great. We definitely want all of it. Can you elaborate on the discrepancies in information on position vacancies?
It's our position that there are a significant number of openings at DPW that is causing some of the decrease in services that both residents have discussed in their testimony today. While those positions may be listed, we don't fully believe that they reflect the actual amount of individuals that may be required to improve those services. And in order to improve the safety of the individuals who are already working in those positions, we believe that more need to be added.
And how many employee injuries are you aware of from inadequate snow and ice clearance on lots?
I can think of 6 off the top of my head. And those were individuals, again, who had just showed up at the beginning of the snow shifts. And as nothing was cleared, it was just injuries from slipping and falling in the parking lot. I do know at least one individual went to the hospital.
Oh, wow. Okay. We've noticed the DPW has had issues with its sister agency, DGS, on basic facility repairs and maintenance. And my understanding is that while it's DGS's responsibility to repair the facilities, DPW has, from time to time, just used its own funds to do so. But it's definitely not their job. Is that something you've also heard?
Yeah, and I think that actually translates to other agencies as well. I know this isn't a DGS hearing, but they need some help.
Yeah.
If they are in charge of every agency in the city, essentially all of those facilities, they're not able to do that. The DPW roof itself, I know that their associate director for facilities and operations has himself been up there trying to make repairs. And that's not something that he should be doing. But unfortunately, he's in the position where if he doesn't, nothing is going to get done expeditiously. You know, coming from DMV as my home agency, we have the same issues with heating and cooling systems. And when 10 to 12 tickets are put in a day, DGS just doesn't have the staff or the resources to accomplish them all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming down here today. Sorry that we missed you.
Thanks for
Our
having me.
message
I
missed
couldn't
you,
stay
but,
away.
Happy to have you. And Mr. Crane, thank you so much for your testimony. You're still with us. Good. I was going to mention the same thing to you. You had mentioned 311 not accepting leaf requests for 6 months of the year. Don't forget, you can put them in bags and request they be picked up as yard waste. People sometimes forget that, 6 at a time. So, yeah. Snow's Court's a great place. Sorry they've been dealing with that. It's a beautiful little strip of residential back there. And yeah, it stinks. We have at least one place like that in Ward 1 that I can think of that tends to sort of get the raw end of the stick, raw end of the deal, short end of the stick. You know what I mean? Yeah, there you go. No, Glick is in Ward 2, actually.
It must be on just on the.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. But yeah, it's not ours. But we, of course, we would love to welcome it into Ward 1. We can talk about that about 6 years from now, right?
You have my one of my employers 930 Club in your district, though.
Indeed.
Yes. So I'm very familiar with the Ward West.
Lovingly.
Oh, yeah.
Lovingly. So, but this is super helpful. And we, we'll raise this up again from your testimony and from Commissioner's testimony to figure out what we can do here. It is weird because, to the naked eye, it looks like an alley, but it's not. It's a residential court. So thanks for taking the time today.
It would be very helpful if we could have, because I understand a commercial alley is that, but I don't think that there is differentiation at any level of government. So you had mentioned that speaking with someone else, how people approach issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now where I'm at is just trying to get, if we're not going to have a top-down approach to saying that, hey, residential alleys are that, then perhaps agency policy can just at least recognize that, hey, we do have 30 row homes that aren't receiving the same level of service.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, and leaf collection is one thing. Snow clearance is it really does turn into a safety issue.
Agreed.
And
all right.
rat containers,
we'll work on it.
Rat containers, I hope, we have people that do the compost program and it's great. I don't know.
Have you seen a difference at all?
No. I mean, do the rats get into to those containers? No. But when again, like you've been to Snow's Court, it sounds like, so you kind of like the compactness, you could have one house as a food source, but then everyone kind of suffers. But just
totally. That's where we do peer pressure.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough because we also have a lot of rentals. So it's just, it's a good
look, there's a lot of opportunity here to rethink some of the things that we're doing, but I want to rethink them in a way that's moving forward, right?
Sure.
Not just a facelift to our trash cans.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So stick with me.
I would love to work with your staff and you on this and just try to think forward and how we can become, an example or a model to other cities. So it would be great.
All right, good. We'll talk. We have some ideas in the hopper, so.
I would love to talk to you about that. I would love to talk some trash.
That's what we say. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Trash talk is basically my love language. All right. So I appreciate that. Okay. Commissioner Edwards, really appreciate your testimony. And as you can tell, there's definitely people on this panel who would love to achieve the no rats cited in 6 months in your area. So thank you for that inspiration. Maybe we can all get there someday. How many blocks in your neighborhood are designated as RPP, residential parking permits?
Oh, wow. I have never gone through, but the places we're having most of the problems with are because, as you know, we're across the street from Silver Spring.
Right.
So all of Eastern Avenue, I know, is RPP. About 2 blocks in are on Calmia Road. The area right near Target is RPP.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think how far down Calmia.
See, that'd be a good inventory.
Yes, thank you.
We could think about how to tackle it together.
I definitely will do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's talk more and figure out how we can make the RPP system work better for your residents.
That will help.
Some people aren't into it. You may get some pushback, but one of the things that we do, just about every block is RPP in Ward 1. And we do heavily utilize the visitor parking pass as well, which is free. And so if you have, say, a house cleaner or a nanny or someone doing repairs, you can just print that out and put it in their windshield and when they arrive. So there are some ways to work around that. So let us know what you find in your research and let's work together on it.
I'll definitely do that. And as far as the rats are concerned, I misattributed the Rodent Academy to DPW, it's DOH, but I really recommend that everyone attend that
Yeah.
because it is so valuable. And when we worked on the rat problem, we had to go to the parking lot owner because the area was near Target. We went to Target, we worked with the residents, we worked with everybody. They compost. And seriously, it was very, very effective, but it required coordination of several different groups. And it was mostly infrastructure repair because the rats were breeding in an area that had fault caved in under the parking lot. So when the private property owner repaired that, that went a long way to getting rid of the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Great. I love
I
it.
want to say that.
Well,
Thank you.
maybe you can teach the ANC masterclass.
Hey, I'll be glad to do it. It was really effective. And DPW helped so much with enforcement and DOH with coming through. And we tried to use as little rodenticide as possible because that really hurts the environment. But it was very helpful.
Wonderful. I
Thank
love
you.
to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And Commissioner White, thanks for hanging in there. Really appreciate your efforts. And, as you mentioned, I do find this work incredibly important, especially to our communities east of the river. You probably work with Ward 8 Woods already, right? I assume you. No? Yeah.
Yes, and they're constantly, as you know, cleaning out our woods, cleaning out our green spaces, and it's nowhere near enough. And they're not, in charge of clearing out our alleys or clearing out any of the sidewalk and streets too.
I think we're going to hear from Nathan later today.
Yeah.
How many of the problems do you think are related to National Park Service jurisdiction?
So within my single member district, the green spaces that have the consistent dumping are mainly owned, I believe, by National Park Service. Much of the green spaces in Ward 8 is owned by National Park Service and maintained through DPR. But then we do have some, especially like the dead end streets that just hit the wooded area, like little small wooded areas to separate apartments or something that are owned by the district. So it's a combination of NPS owned, like at the end of W Street, it's a cul-de-sac. And that's Fort Stanton Park that goes all the way through, parts of Ward 8. That's the most, heavily dumped one in my single member district and probably our ANC. But then we have Squirrel Park on Minnesota Avenue, every park on Minnesota Avenue, pretty much just considering and dumping. And then almost every one of our dead end streets where it kind of leads into just a little bit of wooded areas, magnets for dumping. And we've been going back and forth with DPW, asking for environmental crimes to come out. I mean, I appreciate DPW, but I do, for one, it shouldn't take for 1 year of asking the director to come to the ANC, including being rejected just this week, to our meetings and doing a walkthrough to be able to get some real attention that's happening. And I didn't have enough time, but as you can imagine, we're covered in rats too. We don't even have the restaurants. So it's not like other communities where they have those restaurants and businesses. We have rats from all of the dumping that's happening, both in our woods, but especially in our alleys and on our streets. Just quite frankly, you can just dumping on the streets.
Has Environmental Crimes ever installed a camera?
No, we've been asking for, not to my knowledge, not since I've been asking, and it's a couple of areas, Bangor and Butler, Findle Street Alley, the alley across from our schools. A lot of the dumping happens right across from our schools too, which, is interesting, the proximity of schools. But it's gotten so bad that we've taken it to the Attorney General now, and the ANC has created our own form for residents to respond when DPW is not responding. So we have our own tracker in addition to them sending us their 311 request saying, like, I've tried to elevate this.
Oh, wow.
There's not happening. And we started that last week. So we're just getting the flood of complaints in so that we can now take it to the Attorney General, because we're at the point where we don't know what else to do. Like, we can't get the DPW director to come to the community. We've been asking for a real environmental mitigation and management plan that will show, like, do a walkthrough, see what infrastructure is missing, see what kind of investments can be made, bring the community into this so that we can have a role. And then with your building owners and your contractors, because there's a lot of construction going on in Anacostia. So some of those they're dumping, they're not cleaning up their construction sites at the large ones, and even small, single family home repairs, they're not cleaning up either. And so we've been asking for a plan that's actionable, hopefully something in 18 months that has residents involved, but without coming to our community and putting that together and putting it in a budget, it's just not happening. So we just rely on Inspector Briscoe, who is amazing, but should not have to carry this burden. So it's at the point now where we've elevated to the Attorney General because we're just like, we don't know what else we can do.
Okay, let me work with you on trying to get DPW leadership at your meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a sense of how much of the illegal dumping is from individuals versus corporate or business?
I would say it's probably about 50% individuals. No, 60%, 60 to 70% individuals, and then the other 30% businesses. However, some of the individuals, especially the folks that live in apartments, they're dumping because their apartment owners don't have waste collection at their site. So that's why they're dumping in the alley, because they don't have anywhere else to dump. So of that 60% individuals, I would say like a good 40% comes from a lack of waste management by landlords or property owners where they are renting from. And then the rest is like just people coming and dumping, like Wardy Woods is constantly cleaning up and stuff like that. So
Can we work on that too with the buildings?
That's another reason with
Okay.
because like they're always, DPW tells us we can't go into private property or whatever, but then it's somehow it gets cleaned up after we like send 100 emails and say you cleaned up private property before, and then it's like DOB is involved, but they're like, well, we ticketed this person, and we have one property I'm thinking of in my SMD that has $30,000 worth of fines already related to just excess trash and waste management.
Right. And they're not intending to pay those, so
They're not intending to pay it. And they live in Potomac, Maryland, one of the richest zip codes in the country. And literally the advice from DPW, I appreciate them so much, was maybe I could go knock on their door and ask them to be a better neighbor.
You got their phone number? Send it to me.
No phone number.
Oh, send me the contact info. I'm going to
it's just
this one.
Just be an email, but I'm not going to Potomac, Maryland to ask somebody who owns a building that's valued at more than $1 million to provide a trash service.
No, I know you're not.
Like
I might.
Okay, that's fine. You can, but we're not ANC commissioners. That's outside of like.
Yeah, that just makes me mad. So if you could send me all that info, I'd appreciate it.
I can send you, but this is what's happening. Even when the ticketing is happening, is like, you have 30,000 on this one property. How are the agencies not talking to each other to say, hey, they've been ticketed more than $5,000. Shouldn't it be a trigger or something that the next level needs to go up, or escalation, because this ticketing is not working?
Right. Understood. We can look into that a little bit more, but I'm really, really glad you're here today. I know you probably have some other place to be, so thank you. Appreciate
I just wanted to say about the public restrooms. I think we sent an email, one of my other colleagues sent an email last year about those public restrooms, and we asked for one to be in historic Anacostia in our business district. As you know, our business district is home to roughly 9 substance use, behavioral health, and mental health, including BHG methadone clinic, which the line starts populating around 3 a.m. For clinic doesn't open till 5 a.m. So when folks are out there like standing in the line along the street, they have nowhere to use the bathroom. So we do have open defecation that's happening in our businesses. And on our residents, people are coming out with like open defecation on their sidewalks and other places because of the lack of restroom access. In addition to, we have a growing unhoused population. Some of it's coming from the encampments that have been closed uptown that are being pushed over here, which we told the district will happen. And so we just have a greater population on our Marionberry, Minnesota Avenue, MLK Avenue corridors between the methadone clinic population that attracts a couple hundred people daily, the open air drug market that's on 16th and Marionberry that hosts anywhere from 100 to 300 people daily, and then just the increase in unhoused population that's coming from other parts of the city that's been pushed over here. And so there's a lot of open defecation, human
Okay.
defecation, in addition to
We got to find more money for these public restrooms, but you know, I'm here for it, so we'll figure
if
it
we
out.
could just get one, I would say one on Marionberry probably, or somewhere we can identify somewhere that's actually safe too for folks. And
You said you did a resolution asking for one already?
I believe one of our commissioners, I know she sent an email. I'm not sure if we did a resolution, but we'll vote.
Yeah,
for
the
a
budget's
resolution.
obviously locked for this fiscal year, but if we can, we'd want to expand it. I mean, we want to make it permanent, not just a pilot, because you know, I had passed that public restrooms law a couple of years ago, and then DGS didn't move it forward. So now we're doing this pilot with DPW. So we're going to connect the dots on all of that. But these thrones have been such a game changer because they cost like $80-some thousand a year, which is almost nothing in the city budget. And you can pick them up, you can move them, you know, they're solar.
And that's something that the Anacostia Business Improvement District could probably manage because of all of the, you know, environmental management that they're doing in the business.
Yeah, and actually the downtown bid manages one. So, you know, happy to talk more with the bid too. Like maybe they want to partially fund one or something, but let's keep it going.
Okay, we'll reach out and send it.
I'm gonna wrap us.
Okay, thank you.
We have like many more witnesses, but I love this conversation, so thank you. Appreciate all of you. Okay. Our next panel includes, we have a number of people who haven't arrived yet, so I'm going to, I think, call everybody who's here at this point, and we can always do another panel if more people show up. But I will call everybody that we have on our list, just in case, if you're in the Zoom and maybe your name is something different, we don't know to promote you. So just double check your name. Raise your hand if I call your name and you're not being promoted. Okay, so this panel will include Salvador Sauceda Guzman, Porter White, Doris Newton, Senior Advisory Representative of Stronghold Civic Association, Tanya Martin, Laura Mitterman, Mike Warburton, Jen Kaufman, Paul Davis, Amanda Wilson, Wanda Hopkins, Jocelyn Johnson, Anthony David, EJ organizer with Empower DC, Sharon Edwards, Justice for Brentwood, John Wiebenson, Vice President of Operations, Georgetown Bid, Susan Shore, Chair, Zero Waste Committee Volunteer, DC Chapter of Sierra Club, Dan Israel, Senior Vice President of Residential and Municipal Programs, Compost Crew, Chris Weiss, Executive Director, DC Environmental Network, Nathan Harrington, Executive Director, Ward 8 Woods Conservancy, Inc., Jamoni Overby, DC Conservation Advocate, Nature Forward. So we'll go in the order that I called, but not everybody is here. We will promote people to the panel if they arrive while the panel is ongoing. So of those who are here, I believe we are beginning with Porter White.
Hi, thanks. Am I allowed to share my PowerPoint that I made? Sure. Okay. So this is a small issue. Of course, I was a consultant for many years, so bear with me. But it was pointing to some underlying issues that I think we can address. So similar to others, I'm citing something where DPW wasn't responsive. And in this case, I give a little context to say, okay, I have this mattress. It's been dumped in the alley behind my house. And I move it up against my garage and I say, let's have that removed. Now, that gets a response, and I put it in a 311 ticket for that. That goes in and says, okay, great. They respond. I'm going to give you a series of responses from December 9th, I think. forward. And they go, great, we got your ticket. Here's your ticket. Boom. We'll deal with it. They come in and say, okay, looks like we need to do a full alley cleaning. And so that is the response, same day or next day. It's a pretty quick response. Them to say, we'll go look at that. Then they say, we will have this resolved by December 27th. So that was December 9th, they'll have it resolved by December 27th. Great, there you go. Then that passes. I make several attempts to update the ticket and look at the ticket. The ticket is not, the 311 ticket, for those not familiar with how it works or doesn't work for the person who submitted it, is not, you can't really access it. You can see it, but if you launch it, you don't really get to see the details, and you don't get to see subscribers, you don't get alerts, you can get alerts for people who post, but it's rudimentary. Let's put it that way for that. So then December 27th passes. These are all my attempts. You can see this is my out box of my email. 3 calls. This is my out box. Okay. Not all of these. One was related to a street lamp. And some of these are not to 311, but it's to 311 asking them to update the ticket because I can't update the ticket for that. Okay. Then I go, okay, they're not updating it. So I send my note to Timothy Spriggs, and I copied Brian Romanowski, who's the chief of staff for
Mr. White?
Yeah.
Sorry, you only have about 42 seconds left, so I just want to make sure we're going to be able to understand your whole testimony.
The testimony here is, the end point here is, we don't have a system that alerts people. There's no responsiveness. This goes on for all the way until January, and then I happened upon a DWP employee who was mortified by the lack of response. Okay, fine, you've heard a lot of testimony about that. But you don't have a system that tells you that something's going wrong. There's no alerting that says, hey, this is past due. This is past due by a week. Here's to send it out to the supervisor if the individual. Then you had someone who falsified the ticket and said it was removed. So then I immediately stepped out. There's no alert to say to reopen it and say, oh, false statement. So the system doesn't work to help you along. And that's what I'm suggesting we address.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And just folks at home, sorry, we don't actually allow sharing screen, but something must be wrong with the way we set up. And you were ready to go before I could even respond. So just others have asked and we've said no. So I do apologize. We just had a little glitch here. But Mr. White, your point is well taken and happy to work with you on that. Okay, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Oh, let me see, turn my video on here. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Councilmember Nadeau. I am Doris Newton. I am a member of the Stronghold Residence Neighborhood in Ward 5. My request today is for big-bellied trash and recycle cans to replace the current open-top cans in the public spaces along our community on North Capitol Street on both sides. So the Stronghold community is located near Michigan Avenue, south towards Bryant. I guess the best way to say is we are the community that's across the street from the new Reservoir District development. So we have had any number of discussions with DPW about increase in rodents, and they have been responsive. We've been attending meetings together and trying to come up with solutions. So the issue currently is that the increased rodent activities in the community due to increased development along the corridor has meant thinking of new ways to address the rodent issue. This area is a high traffic area. We're on the main thruway, North Capitol Street, meaning it's the bus stops here and heavy foot traffic, regular pedestrian walking, and the trash cans along the public area are used frequently. Our issue is that the current public trash cans, and I have a picture of it in photo too that I sent you with they're not sufficient, we believe, to combat the rodent activities. The cans are open at the top and easily accessible by the rodents, squirrels, and any other pests, and sometimes people overstuffing the uncovered openings. There are approximately 3 to 4 public trash cans, typically near the bus stops right along on either side of North Capitol Street. And these are the ones we're referencing. A recommendation is these big belly trash and recycle cans. I show you that in the second photo. These are products that are secure closure openings that rodents can't easily enter. And we're hoping that since we, the Stronghold, are a smaller neighborhood, that we would appreciate being considered maybe as a pilot for some of these particular trash cans so you can see how they work in our communities to help. So again, we've had this discussion with DPW. They are working with us in our community to combat issues where the community can cooperate with DPW and DPW can recommend things to us. So thank you so much. And I want to acknowledge the DPW team that has been dedicated to helping us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Newton. Ms. Kaufman?
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jen Kaufman. I serve as an advisory neighborhood commissioner for single member District 4008 and as chair of ANC 4D. And today I am testifying on behalf of our commission. ANC 4D constituents often reach out to us to report frequent missed pickups for trash and recycling, as you've heard from other folks as well. And when those pickups are missed, the trash and the recycling, they quickly build up because of limited space in our bins and our alleys. And dependable pickup is of the utmost importance to our constituents, especially to help prevent contributing to the ongoing problem of rodents and pests in the district. But I wanted to also note that our constituents' frustration by missed pickups is compounded by the 311 reporting system and how tickets are dealt with there. So constituents are reporting that when they have 311 reports of missed pickups, that they're closed quickly. But the trash and the recycling isn't necessarily picked up. And so I wanted to echo public testimony that was given actually at the committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety hearing regarding the Office of Unified Communications. We recommend that tickets should not be closed until the subsequent pickup is completed, and that closed tickets always have a brief explanation of the resolution. Oftentimes, again, our constituents reporting they're not receiving that information, and so it's just kind of a black box as to what's happening. This winter's snowstorms has posed challenges for many city services. And as a commission, we also ask that when there's inclement weather that causes delays for those trash pickups, the recycling pickups, for the holiday tree pickups, just that that DPW really ensures that there's clear proactive communication. So instead of perhaps everyone having to turn to 311 to find out what's happening, if there is proactive communication about these delays, not just with council members' offices, but also with the ANCs, since we are hearing those concerns, we can also help disseminate the updates. Residents are often playing a guessing game as to when trash will be picked up because of those inconsistent communications about those delays. I also wanted to express our enthusiastic support for the composting program. This pilot has been an enormous success with our residents. Want to say that they are rat-proof containers. I have not seen that nor heard anything about that. And they're helping to reduce the waste in our garbage cans, in our landfills, getting the district closer to that the city's goal of 80% waste diversion. Want to echo support for the expansion of this beneficial program, as well as hoping that it will be more accessible to more residents across the district. And then lastly, I just wanted to express equity and digital divide concerns about the new process for district residents to participate in special waste collection events. So, shredding, e-cycling, household hazardous waste. In order to participate, residents must utilize Eventbrite to sign up for slots to drop off materials at RFK Stadium. I'd like to ask the committee to determine with DPW if this new format has actually led to a decrease in participation, which would be detrimental because of the enormous environmental benefits of electronics recycling, which, besides the impact on greenhouse emission, it prevents pollution and reduces landfill waste. I see that my time is coming to a close, and I want to thank you for your time, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Paul Davis?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just get my windows here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you so much. I'm Paul. I'm a resident of Ward 8. I'm grateful for this opportunity. We have a big parking enforcement challenge in Ward 8, especially east of the river. That's the pervasive use of our streets for illegal parking by vehicles with out-of-state tags and really egregious fines on those tags. The parking enforcement mission it really assumes good faith and reasonable behavior. Folks are going to do stuff to avoid tickets, and then folks are going to pay the tickets. Those assumptions are not working in Ward 8. Our streets overfloweth with illegally parked vehicles. In just one example, many vehicles involved in the food truck industry, either the food trucks themselves or their support vehicles, they end up in Ward 8. I love Ward 8. I'm glad they love it here too. But their illegal parking is really hurting Ward 8. And DPW's performance is not resolving this challenge. A vehicle with tens of thousands of dollars of citations has nothing to lose. And so they park in really spectacularly illegal locations, in RPP zones for often weeks at a time, in no parking zones for often weeks at a time. This congests our streets, it creates safety hazards, and really contributes to a sense of disorder and dysfunction in our communities. That's the injury. The insult is that these vehicles are engaged in a form of public theft against the district. I see it when I see that there's $7,000 or $17,000 of citations associated with the tags, and they're not being held accountable by DPW. Instead, we get a litany of reasons. We don't have a tow truck big enough. Tow trucks don't come to Ward 8. We can't tow it because it doesn't have 3 tickets on the windshield. The tags are valid, and nothing gets done. For these types of vehicles, a $35 citation is not meaningful. They get tossed on the ground. DPW needs a different response for these sorts of cases. I understand the situation is vast and dynamic. I humbly offer a few specific recommendations. Please work with DPW to create a more integrated operational model. The current one is complicated and confusing, and it seems to focus on single activities, close the 311 ticket, rather than actual outcomes. Please increase towing and booting resources for DPW. In the cases I'm describing, it's the only tool that works. Please empower parking enforcement officers in the field to identify high-risk vehicles like tags with outstanding citations over a certain threshold and empower them to escalate DPW's response. I'd love DPW to be more transparent about how it deploys limited resources so we can understand if it's being distributed fairly. I think this will help DPW with a more focused response on this serious issue. I want them to succeed, and I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson.
Jocelyn Johnson, me?
Yes, ma'am.
You said not. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Jocelyn Johnson. I'm the former chairperson for the Ward 4 Mini Commission on Aging, and I'm a member of the DC Safe Streets Coalition group. And I just wanted to talk to you this afternoon, first of all, starting off with all of the above, whatever everybody else has said. I kind of endorse it all. I want to talk about rats, trash, and your staff of collectors who have just made a grand mess of trash pickup collection process. We need to have some kind of adjustment made by the council, by the mayor, whoever. And I really want to kind of piggyback on something that really hasn't been said a lot. Someone did sort of mention it, and that's the introduction of the Bowser Act last week, where the representatives from Congress introduced some proposed legislation to repeal our home rule charter. I realized that happened we voted for it back in 1973. And 50 some years later, we're still talking about trash cans. I mean, there has to be something done. And you kind of gave an answer as I've been listening to the people who've been testifying. If the compost bucket is rat proof, Why not use whatever makes up the compost bucket and use that for trash cans? We know what doesn't work. And I don't know how many people have to testify, how many years they have to testify to the council, tell the mayor, whatever. But I kind of understand why these congressional people, the new president, whatever, have had to say, we need to do something, because in DC, it takes too many studies, too many meetings, too many conversations to say, this doesn't work. Let's do something that does work. Trash needs to be picked up, because rats don't just eat food. Rats eat trash. Rats eat grass. Rats, rodents eat everything. So if we have something, or since we have something that does work, your compost, let's use that. And let's get a fabrication company or whatever, and let's let them show that we can do some things in DC that actually do work. We can make some things come to pass where we can stop littering on our DC streets, wherever. And I wanted to make a suggestion. I don't want to just bring you a lot of problems, Miss Nadeau, but I have a couple of suggestions. I actually think that maybe what's needed with the trash pickup situation is that we add a third crew. You have trash, you have recycle. We can just have a crew that comes behind all of them and clean up the trash that the staff, the collection people litter, because that has not been, I haven't heard that this afternoon. When I watch, I'm retired, so I actually can look out the window and see that, for whatever reason, trash litters and falls out of the can and does not get into the truck. The collectors leave that behind. And for whatever reason, what we do here in leaving, the can that had the baked beans in it, the paper plates that had the birthday party icing from the cake, when they leave it on the ground, the rats eat that too. And maybe we could give some jobs to some people who need jobs, and let there be a crew that can put the cans back where they're supposed to be. They can pick up where the litter that the trash collectors have left behind, the recycle collectors have left behind. And that would help to actually attack the rat problem. You're right. We'll probably never get to a place where we'll have no rats, but where we can fix it, we can show Congress that we can do some things and get to a solution for things that can be fixed. It shouldn't take 50 years and 4,000 meetings and all kinds of studies to say, hey, these cans don't work. We have a material now that does work. We can make trash cans out of that.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
So I wanted to put that out there, and hopefully, I wanted to give you that suggestion.
Thank you.
And I'm available to answer questions you have too. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we'll hear from John Webenson.
Hello. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify today. Good afternoon, Council Chairperson Nadeau, members of the committee and the staff. I am the Vice President of Operations at the Georgetown bid, and I will provide our testimony on the DPW's performance over the past year. The bid's got a very strong relationship with DPW. The staff, the leadership and staff, we want to recognize them for being accountable and collaborative partners. We appreciate the support we received from Director Spriggs in his office, as well as the Solid Waste Management Administration, the Parking Enforcement Management Administration, the Solid Waste Education and Enforcement Program, also known as SWEEP. They are consistently helpful in addressing a wide range of challenges and obstacles we've encountered with the removal of trash, the removal of difficult to access graffiti, providing parking enforcement that is critical to keeping our curbside management managed properly, and then the necessary education for businesses, and then enforcement if needed when handling trash properly. I really appreciate the approach of partnership that DPW has consistently taken with the Georgetown bid and all the bids in the city. Their commitment to partnership is regularly displayed in weekly meetings. DPW started with the bids during the COVID pandemic, and they continue to this day. Every Friday, bids and representatives from DSLDB meet via Zoom with several staff members of DPW to discuss issues like trash removal, parking enforcement, special topics like snow or leaf removal, or how do we coordinate during large impacted events such as the inauguration. In addition, DPW has provided funds to replace and add additional trash cans in all the bids. We really hope this funding is continued as it's successful to successfully manage trash in public spaces. As been talked about a lot, we actually piloted a rodent-proof public space trash can with Victor Stanley. We really hope to expand that in the future, working with DPW and DOH. Snow prep has always been a team effort, starting with the annual snow prep meeting that DPW hosts in November and continues throughout the snow season. We coordinate a lot of roles that DPW does, as well as we do and our members in Georgetown. DPW has had a long, successful partnership with the DPW suite teams. Members of the team and the bid staff have covered all areas of the bid for more than 15 years. On these walks, we identify issues, meet with businesses and property managers to provide proper education and resources, and then sometimes issuing a notice of infraction or fines, all with the goal of a cleaner and healthier Georgetown. Over the years, these walks have also included representatives from DOH, Citizens Association, ANC, and other agencies. They've been very responsive to our requests and provide support as needed. We also got snow sidewalk removal enforcement from DPW upon request this year. That had been a challenge for unsafe sidewalk conditions. Trash management, which has been talked about a lot today, is essential for an appealing and economically vital neighborhood. We work with DPW to remove trash from sidewalks, alleys, and 170 public trash cans in Georgetown. This operation was greatly improved by DPW providing 2 compactors for us in the Golden Triangle to use. These compactors greatly reduce the number of trips for the bid clean teams and the DPW trucks between Georgetown and the transfer stations. We also coordinate removal of illegal dumping and bulk trash left in public spaces. Parking enforcement is also a huge need in Georgetown. We have such a limited curbside that in order to make plans work effectively, we need enforcement. DPW has been always willing to meet with our staff and respond to special concerns that we have. Issues have ranged from helping remove ice cream trucks from illegally parking in bike lanes on K Street to helping us free up bus stops, loading zones, and parking spots on M and Wisconsin Avenue. One area we would like to explore with DPW is a way to establish a Department of Public Works reimbursable detail for parking enforcement officers or sweep inspectors. We have done this successfully both with MPD and DDOT. Thank you for the opportunity for me to provide comments, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. And we've also now been joined by Anthony David. We'll hear from him next.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Anthony David Jr. I am the environmental justice organizer with Empower DC. And within the past 2 decades, Empower DC has worked to advance racial, economic, and environmental justice with DC residents citywide. Testifying today to highlight concerns related to projects or DPW's, involvement within the Brentwood community. Last December, Empower DC, along with our Justice for Brentwood residents, I'm joined today by Ms. Sharon Edwards today, hosted a community walkthrough. We had residents and representatives from district government and agencies, all out there at the same time, and including Regional Director at the time, Adam Ortiz from the EPA in attendance. During our walkthrough, we all took notice of a lot of the foul odors coming from DPW's W Street site and other nearby facilities as well, along with piles and piles of trash located at DPW's site right behind Desire Kelly Park. So we were able to see that, along the fence of, piles of trash. And additionally, there has been concerns around DPW's vehicle operations, as you've heard, throughout the testimonies today. Including excessive speeding down W Street and also including illegal engine idling as well. Idling contributes to air pollution and violates DC anti-idling laws, so it's quite unfortunate that our own district vehicles are also, breaking those laws as well. We've had previous meetings and some of, our workers don't know how long you're allowed to idle in the District of Columbia. I asked that DPW take immediate steps to enforce vehicle regulations and hold employees accountable for unsafe driving practices. DPW facilities have a significant impact on public health. Industrial activities, poor waste management, and vehicle emissions contribute to respiratory illness, increased asthma rates, and general environmental degradation in surrounding neighborhoods such as Brentwood. As the agency responsible for maintaining the cleanliness of our city, it is imperative that DPW exemplifies best practices in waste management. The presence of trash on their W Street site not only undermines public confidence, but also sets a poor example for residents and businesses. I urge the council to recommend that DPW implement regular site maintenance schedules and ensure prompt removal of any waste to uphold the standards that they promote to the city. I urge DPW to take proactive measures to ensure that its facilities operates in compliance with DC environmental and public health laws and to provide a clear action plan for addressing these concerns. As the agency responsible for maintaining, our cleanliness, the Brentwood community unfortunately have experienced a lot of, different issues related to waste. We've heard, and not just the Brentwood community, across all of Ward 5, which is kind of unfortunate. The neighborhoods most closest to the DPW facilities has seen, lots and lots of, trash piles up and lots and lots of, trash that isn't getting picked up, especially as it relates to illegal dumping. And, as you heard from a lot of other residents, there have been a lot of 311 reports in the Ward 5 community, but a lot of those reports aren't necessarily going through or taking into account. As a sizable portion of our district land, especially in Ward 5, is industrial. In fact, I think there's a case to be said that especially going back to the site management, that DPW could take this opportunity to also expand green space within some of their property as well. That same corner that they had a lot of trash piled up on is a corner that potentially green space could be going into. They could potentially expand the Zaire Kelly Park into their property lines, instead of keeping that area for trash. They have lots and lots of surface areas, within Brentwood, but then also that U City community, lots of surface parking lot that, is just, not really being used. So, again, this is a case for not only increasing the tree canopy coverage, for, uh, to reduce the heat island effect, but also to, help with some of those odors. DPW isn't necessarily like an air emitting facility, but yet there are still odors that do emit, not necessarily emit because they're not like doing, things, especially with their maintenance vehicle fleets. But, there still are odors that are present, and I think green space could definitely help with that. And, we definitely have, another resident here today to kind of share some of her experiences, as she does live adjacent to one of the DPW sites. So I will pass it to Ms. Sharon after my testimony. I will stick around for questions. Thank you.
Great. Does your two testimony go together?
Well, she wrote her own testimony,
Okay.
So I'll let her speak for herself.
If you'll just give me 1 minute, I accidentally missed Ms. Wilson, who I had higher up on the list. We'll do Ms. Wilson, Ms. Edwards, and then we'll continue on with the order. I believe Ms. Shore will be next. Very good. Thank you. Ms. Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Amanda Wilson, and I'm a resident of Ward 4 and an active member with the Sierra Club DC Zero Waste Committee and the Return, Refund, and Recycle Coalition for DC, also called 3RC, the District Bottle Bill Coalition. Councilmember Nadeau, thank you so much to you and your 10 fellow council members for co-introducing the District Recycling, Refund, and Litter Reduction Amendment Act of 2025. This landmark bottle bill legislation will cut the out-of-control bottle and can pollution that plagues residents across the district, especially along the Anacostia River, exposing everyone to microplastic and PFAS contamination. It will create green jobs, cut greenhouse gases, and fund water filters to stop lead exposure from lead service lines. We congratulate you and your office for your vision with this amazing environmental legislation. Thank you also for being a vocal advocate of composting, including in this hearing. Environmental stakeholders are motivated to work collaboratively with DPW and its Office of Waste Diversion, but for this we need greater information exchange, including about OWD's residential and commercial composting programs in the district. At a minimum, we suggest that DPW start publishing online updates on the waste diversion results of existing composting programs, reporting on the tons of food waste that were diverted by the curbside compost collection program. After many requests, we learned yesterday in DPW's pre-hearing questions report where the smart composting bins are expected to be deployed probably this month. That's welcome news, but we would also welcome a projection on the number of households they will serve and regular reports on the food scrap waste they divert. DPW's pre-hearing question report notes that the agency hopes to expand the curbside program in the next fiscal year. And we request that DPW share its plans in this hearing, along with any expansion plans for its smart bin, farmers market, and other composting programs, including the estimated number of households or participants to be served and projections of food waste to be diverted. We also welcome learning whether DPW plans to expand the entities required to participate in the commercial composting programs, such as restaurants, perhaps. We understand that the Zero Waste Omnibus Amendment Act of 2020 authorizes DPW to expand this program. We also welcome details and clarification on 2 points DPW raised in the October Zero Waste Roundtable Councilmember Nadeau organized. Regarding long-term residential compost collection plans, what are the capital and operational expenses for DPW's projection that it would cost $55 million to bring curbside compost collection in-house? Can DPW confirm if this budget includes compost collection trucks and if the plan is to procure electric vehicles? Related to legislative triggers to expand compost collection in multifamily housing, what are the legislative limits DPW perceives it faces to require compost collection in multifamily housing? To address the trigger issue, it would be helpful for DPW to identify the relevant law, and we also request this committee to consider solutions such as updating the legislation to ensure that residents in multifamily housing also have access to composting collection. Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau, for convening this performance oversight hearing and for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll now hear from Sharon Edwards.
You're still muted, Ms. Sharon.
Good afternoon. This is Sharon Edwards, a Ward 5 Brentwood member, community. I've been in this area for 25 years, and thank you for listening to my testimony that I'm about to give. I have a problem with DPW. Zaire Kelly Memorial Park, they are not maintaining that park. I have to call to have the grass cut, and when I do call, they send out a team. And in the park is benches. They'll knock the benches over. It sits on pillows, so the benches will be even. And I've called for them to rectify that. They have not rectified that since last year. Also, they lenient about dumping the trash in the park, and they do not keep their lot clean on the inside and outside of their facility at 1241 W Street. So I'm calling to ask with DPW answer to answer to the 311 request that our neighbors have put in that they're not attending to in a timely manner. I've taken pictures and sent it to DPW, and they're not being addressed. People are dumping trash at the end of their gates when they have to ride by and see the trash that's when they enter and exit the facilities, that the trash is laying out there where it's noticeable. Also, parking enforcement. Parking enforcement rarely come by and ticket Maryland tags that I've called about several occasions because I have a residential parking sticker that I pay dearly for, and people doesn't have it. I've taken pictures of that also, and I just want DPW to do what they're required to do as far as trash, cutting the park. I have to call in the summertime when the grass grow. I have to call at least once or twice a month for them to come out and cut the grass and dump the trash in the summer, like in the summertime when I'm sitting on my porch, 11, 12:30 at night. A trash truck will come down W Street, pass the trash can, turn around, and go back up the street. And we have to dump that trash in our trash for it to be, the dog poop in the bags and the trash that's in the trash can, for it to be, nice in the park. So I just wish they would do better. And we need to be on a schedule for the trash pickup in Zaire Cully Park, for the grass, the maintaining of the park, period. I shouldn't have to call twice a month for them to come out there. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Susan Shore?
Thank you very much, Councilmember Nadeau. Thanks for this opportunity to testify at the DPW Performance Oversight hearing. I will be giving the Sierra Club DC Chapter's testimony today. I'm the chair of the Sierra Club DC Chapter Zero Waste Committee. We have more than 2,000 dues-paying members and many thousands more supporters. I'd like to repeat what Ms. Wilson just said. Councilmember Nadeau, on behalf of the DC Chapter, we really wish to thank you and your fellow council members for co-introducing the District Recycling Refund and Litter Reduction Amendment Act of 2025. It's a landmark bottle bill legislation. It will cut bottle and can pollution across the district and address the environmental injustice caused by out-of-control bottle and can pollution, which has exposed residents along the Anacostia River to microplastic and PFAS contamination. It will significantly reduce plastic pollution in the district, create green jobs, cut greenhouse gases, and fund water filters to stop lead exposure from lead service lines. It is truly an amazing piece of environmental legislation, and we congratulate you and your team for your vision on this bill. We also would like to call for council to pass this bill as soon as possible. And while we understand it has been referred sequentially to the Committee on Business and Economic Development and then to the Committee on Transportation and the Environment, we call upon council to hold one single hearing on this bill as soon as possible. As my colleague, Ms. Wilson said, environmental stakeholders are motivated to work collaboratively with DPW and its Office of Waste Diversion, but we do need better information flow. In addition to the composting issues Ms. Wilson noted, this includes having regular quarterly stakeholder meetings. The last one was held on March 19th, 2024. We need yearly waste diversion reports to measure success and identify where programs are needed. We're pleased to learn from DPW's pre-hearing question report that the 2023 waste diversion report is expected to be published in fiscal year 2025, but we hope that won't be delayed. We would welcome and have asked repeatedly for a briefing on DPW's visits to zero waste campuses in California and European reuse programs, and we'd like to have briefings on any other such zero waste field visits they conduct. We call for information exchanges on the renovation of the Benning Road Trash Transfer Station as a zero waste campus. These exchanges should provide an opportunity for environmental stakeholders to learn about DPW's plans and for us to share our input with DPW. For example, to ensure the Benning Road campus fosters building material and other types of reuse, and to highlight the opportunities provided by the bottle bill to lease spaces both for a redemption center and a baling facility for container recycling. Leasing spaces to zero waste entrepreneurs could generate income DPW could then pump into the expansion of zero waste services such as composting. We also welcome greater information exchange on residential and commercial composting, as Amanda Wilson just covered. Looking ahead, we welcome updates on the award of the district's recycling contract, when the mayor's list of recyclables will be updated, which parts of the Zero Waste DC Plan OWD will implement in the year ahead, and we'd like to know how OWD is coordinating Zero Waste Plan implementation with other government agencies. We request that DPW seek funding to conduct a Save As You Throw pilot in fiscal year 2026 and urge DPW to begin planning to move to dual stream recycling, which the bottle bill will make more feasible, as explained in my written testimony. Moving on to transportation, we ask if DPW is on track to meet the 2026 requirement that all vehicle purchases or leases by the district government be zero emissions vehicles. We urge DPW to provide a clear plan and annual benchmarks for transitioning its fleet to zero emission vehicles by 2045. Additionally, we emphasize the need to prioritize the removal of dangerous repeat offenders from our streets, particularly through the full funding of Councilmember Nadeau's new parking enforcement law. Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau, for convening this performance oversight hearing and for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We'll now hear from Dan Israel.
Thank you, Chairperson Nadeau. I'm Dan Israel. I run residential and municipal programs at Compost Crew, which is the largest food scrap recycling company in the DMV. I'm here on behalf of our CEO, Ben Perry, who is in Annapolis today, testifying on behalf of some other composting legislation, as well as the rest of our employees. We have been involved with this program since the beginning of the pilot in 2023. And we've been delighted to continue our efforts on the program up until the current fiscal year. We subcontract with Compost Cab, another local company and early adopter when it comes to food scrap composting in the area. Under the leadership of DPW, this program has achieved strong results, and I'll talk a little bit about those results in a minute, while demonstrating that food scrap composting is a valuable service that is well loved by those residents who are participating in the program. I do just want to reiterate, like we said last year, that the team at the Office of Waste Diversion has been a great partner in this program. They are easy to work with and provide clear direction to us as the vendor who's providing the service. There's some great people who work on the team, all of whom I have named in my written testimony. A few metrics on what has happened with the program since it started. Collections started in September 2023. The collection trucks have made more than 600,000 stops at the approximately 9,000 participating households who are in the program. In that time, or up until pretty recently, we have diverted 1,524 tons of food scraps away from the landfill. Just to do a quick conversion, that's more than 3 million pounds of food scraps not going to the landfill as a result of the composting program. This is not only a benefit to the environment, as most of you probably know, not having food scraps in the landfill reduces the amount of methane that is produced by the landfills. It also reduces the weight that is hauled by the DPW's trash crews and reduces wear and tear on DPW trash trucks. Additionally, the program returned about 50,000 pounds in finished compost to residents, to DC public schools, and to community gardens, providing people with a nutrient-rich soil amendment to help improve the quality of district soils. Last, certainly not least, the program has created good paying local jobs for at least 20 people. Last year, DPW did a satisfaction survey of people participating in the program, and 98% of respondents said they were either very satisfied or satisfied with the program, which is a really impressive score, I think, by any measure. This is very strong satisfaction with the plan that was the highest priority of residents who provided input in 2023 into the Zero Waste DC plan. Now, as you know, less than 10% of single family homes today participate in the current program. All of them opted in to be part of the effort. We would certainly like to see the program expanded and more homes have the opportunity to participate. The Zero Waste plan that I just mentioned calls for a ban on disposing compostable materials to the landfill by 2032. We do think that building gradually towards that full ban is the right way to go. It will be much more successful to build up towards that number rather than trying to roll it out in its entirety to everybody in the district. We are truly grateful that the council has provided funding for food waste collection, and we are happy to have been part of it in partnership with DPW. We are ready to provide our support to continue this program in any way that we can, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And our final witness that we believe is here is Nathan Harrington, Executive Director of the Ward 8 Woods Conservancy. If you are in the Zoom right now and we have not promoted you to testify and you're signed up to testify, please raise your hand so we can do that, because this will be our last witness otherwise. And if you did not sign up and you're in the Zoom and you want to testify, you may also raise your hand to testify, but once we hear from Mr. Harrington. Otherwise, we will be doing questions and concluding the hearing. Go ahead, Mr. Harrington.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, and you'll have to excuse me. I've got a bit of a sinus infection. I'm going to be heading over to the clinic as soon as I'm done here. One of the advantages of going last is that I get to hear all of the other the testimony and realize that I'm not on my own here. A lot of what I had to say about trash pollution and illegal dumping has already been amply covered by others, especially Commissioners Jamila White and Sabrina Rhodes. So much of what we do at Ward 8 Woods is just made necessary by the fact that DPW has trouble cleaning up illegally dumped trash and preventing it from happening. And so we kind of step up and do their job for them. I really appreciate and respect a lot of the efforts that are being made, but I just want to point out some of the ways in which I feel like we could do better. It really should not require ANC commissioners and residents and mokers and council offices to, organize a sustained campaign just to address a specific problem. We should have systems so that those things are addressed consistently. DPW and MBD kind of share responsibility for enforcement of illegal dumping. Some of the police districts have environmental crimes units, some of them don't. Some of them have been created and then dissolved, and then new ones created sort of at the discretion of the commander for each police district. Oftentimes we are told that they are going to deploy cameras, but I don't actually see evidence of cameras being deployed. Some of my student lawyers from American University last year, I asked them to look at DC Superior Court records to determine how many people are actually being criminally charged with illegal dumping. And what they found was that, first of all, very few. And secondly, almost all of them were in the 6th Police District with investigations originating with a single officer. That's Matt Jones. He is really good at catching illegal dumpers, and he's trained officers in some of the other districts to do the same thing. But we're not seeing the kind of productivity that we need from them in terms of actually bringing these charges. I think DPW inspectors, they have the different rules of evidence, so they don't need as much evidence to issue a fine as the police would need in order to, get a warrant and criminally charge someone. But we don't see a lot of consistent investigations there. It seems like a lot of times they just forward it to street sweeping. Part of the problem is that the form that you use to report illegal dumping isn't very well designed. They ask you for your phone number 4 different times, and they say, "Did you witness the dumping?" And then there's like 5 questions after that that only apply if you did witness it, but you're not allowed to like leave those blank. So, they made some changes to the form, but it actually wasn't an improvement. If anything, they made it worse. And another thing is that, if the dumping is on public land, then it's illegal dumping. But if it's on private land, then it's a matter of sanitation enforcement. And 311 is supposed to be one-stop shopping, right? As a resident, I should be able to see a problem, report it through 311, and then somebody at Unified Communications will forward it to the right place. But what sometimes happens is that if you submit the wrong type of request, the inspector will say, "Oh, DPW doesn't do that," and they'll just close it or send a note saying you need to report it to somebody else. That shouldn't happen. They should be able to, within the 311 system, transfer it to or change the request type or transfer it to the right agency so that the resident doesn't have to start over. And some of the inspectors do a good job of that, but others don't. So there may be some training needed. Of course, with overflowing dumpsters at apartment buildings and trash that's spreading from apartment buildings over fences onto adjoining public land, the legislation that the council passed gives those inspectors new authority to issue fines if the waste disposal is inadequate. But the problem remains that they only inspect those properties and issues those fines if someone complains. And as I said earlier, our law should be enforced consistently across the board. We shouldn't be waiting for residents to make us think before the law gets enforced. I think it's likely that DPW is going to need more inspectors if they're going to be more proactive about that type of enforcement. DPW leadership testified to that effect last year. And I think that would be a smart investment because it would go a long way to cleaner neighborhoods, and some of that would pay for itself if we can get those fines paid. And just one last thing I want to highlight: there is a street in Ward 8. It's called Dunbar Road. It is basically abandoned. DDOT doesn't maintain it. There are no buildings alongside of it, but people go back there to dump, and it's one of the worst dump sites. So I'm going to be highlighting that Also at the DDOT oversight hearing, it would be smart to simply put up a gate and not allow people to drive back there and dump anymore. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Thanks to this entire panel. Mr. White, thank you for your testimony. Happy to take a look at the things that you compiled for your deck. We definitely want to make sure that your responses are, you're getting responses to your concerns. Ms. Newton, we also love Big Bellies. They cost a lot more than what we have right now, but some of the funding that I put in the budget actually has gone to Big Bellies over the past year, which is very exciting. One idea that I've been trying to pilot is public litter cans. Oh, sorry, this is separate. Are you open to having public litter cans on your residential blocks? We passed a law last year that would allow for that. Right now, DPW isn't installing them.
Is that to me?
Yes.
Councilmember? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I am not aware of what you're talking about, what types of can. I'd be certainly willing to explore it and
Any
talk to
kind
you.
of public litter can on a residential block.
Oh, I'd be concerned if it was one that was open, easily accessible.
Okay.
Yeah, I would rather see something that was closed.
Well, we have a lot of them in Ward 1 because we're so close to all the commercial corridors.
Okay.
And it's just a place people can throw their trash. But yes, they are the traditional ones until something better is acquired.
Oh, yeah, we already have the traditional one.
You do have them on the residential blocks already.
Meaning the reference to the area I talked about, North Capitol Street, meaning the residential blocks or the actual side streets?
The side streets, yeah. Well, I mean, any of them.
No, we don't. We only have them on North Capitol Street.
Only on North.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what I submitted to you in the written testimony, the pictures,
Right.
so you can see what they look like. Yeah, and I think those are not sufficient because they're open, easily accessible.
Yeah. Okay. So the main issue is just that they're being open. The Big Belly has a compacting function. That's not necessarily a requirement as long as it's a closed container.
That's not necessarily a requirement. I proposed those because I just happened to be out one day and saw them near the national park area in the commercial area, and I said, that's a great idea. I wanted to propose that, but something similar if you don't think that would work. It's something that is closed, secure. I think the ones also in National Arboretum that are designed to keep, the deer and any other critters out of them. They're shut tight.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Commissioner Kaufman, I'm wondering if that Eventbrite sign up is maybe coming from the Office of the Clean City.
It may be.
Okay.
And apologies if I have that incorrect. It's again, it's not terribly difficult to use, right? But I do wonder if there are impacts just because of, you run out of the slot, you end up not coming, you have more people that are not turning out because of the digital divide to begin with, because they find it cumbersome. You have to actually wait for them to populate. So I had to set a calendar reminder to myself to wait, to remind myself to look for when they get posted so that I could grab one to be able to recycle electronics that we had. So just because of the environmental impact of those when they get put in the landfill, it's something that I wanted to bring to attention, just to make sure that we're not inadvertently creating more impact and waste in our landfill and adding toxic pollutants there, because people just find that an easier path because of this new process.
Yeah, understood. Do you know people who are utilizing the other collection points like Ace Hardware?
I'm not. And one thing I'm trying to do is actually kind of get the word out and identify, especially with my senior constituents, as to their familiarity with those points, whether they need assistance in signing up for those. And so that's feedback that I'm trying to continue to gather, but certainly would be happy to be in contact with your office as I gather that information.
That would be helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's see. Mr. Davis, thank you for your testimony. One of the things that we've learned is that Ward 8 has the fewest RPP blocks, likely to the fact that it requires a petition. And that is a mechanism that has pretty categorically enforced inequities because it requires people to organize in order to get basic services. Do you think there should be other ways to designate RPP blocks?
No, I don't think that's a root cause here. And
You don't think it's too cumbersome?
I mean, I don't know what the alternative would be. Would that be sort of like on who else would initiate it?
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps ANCs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm all for it. If it was determined that there should be other avenues, that sounds great. I think it's more the stuff that I was getting at. It was more the enforcement of that's the lack of enforcement that drives so much of the spillover problems in the community.
Okay. So the SCOFLA vehicle pilot has shown a lot of promise in addressing the issues that you've raised, but that hasn't been rolled out across the district yet. Yep. Go ahead.
I wish residents could volunteer for that pilot. I love it so much. I'm sure you're seing demand signals all across the district.
I mean, they are always hiring.
Yeah, good.
I do think the new law is going to help make that work more permanent and widespread. And of course, a lot of your recommendations are in the bill that we marked up. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how that gets implemented, sort of eliminating that 3-ticket requirement. We create a points system, refocusing on vehicles that are reckless, et cetera. So same wavelength as what we're doing here, and we'll keep at it, but it should absolutely have an impact in Ward 8. And the other thing is with the food trucks in particular, Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection has asked for additional towing authority, and they keep saying they're going to send us a bill for that, but they haven't. So, but I'd be more than happy to authorize it once they tell us what they need. So that could help in that situation too.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yes, and Ms. Wilson, thank you very much for your support of both the bottle bill and the composting. Ms. Johnson, I appreciate your testimony. I
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that there is a possibility that the same material that you all use for the compost buckets could be used for the trash and recycle, just so we can stop using plastic? You've heard so many.
Those are plastic bins too. And they're very small compared to.
No. I mean, use that material to have it fabricated for a larger size, obviously.
It's plastic. Those are plastic.
But you say they're rats can't eat.
Oh yeah, because they seal. They have a screw on top, unlike the flip top lids, right? So.
But rats chew through the plastic.
Yeah, but it's plastic. We haven't had the issue with it. Maybe it's a different kind of plastic, but.
Because steel, metal, something.
Yeah, I mean, you probably heard my conversation at the last panel that the real priority here is getting that food waste out of the green bins, because that's what's attracting the rats.
Rats eat more than food.
I know they do, but they prefer the food, and I have seen it with my own eyes that when we have composting, there are fewer rats in the neighborhood. And so I know that I hear the desire to have higher tech trash cans in our yards, but for those of us who really truly care about getting rid of rats, we have to stay focused on getting their source out of those cans.
But we
So-
actually have compost on my block, and we still have rats, and they're eating through the blue and the green cans. And just so we can just show that home rule does work, some things can get done. That's
Yes,
my
ma'am.
own-
Well, and also, like, I don't want us to be doubling down on this issue that we need Congress to solve our problems. Just a reminder, DPW picked up all the federal government's trash during the many government shutdowns, and we still haven't been reimbursed for that. So,
all right. Probably going to
let's keep talking about how we can work together to improve our government. I'm here for that, and I appreciate it. But let's keep talking about it. And I think better containers is a good idea, but we got to get the food waste out. That's got to be a big priority. Everyone who complains to me about rats has got to get on board with composting, and then we can talk about the other stuff. That is my request. Mr. David, Ms. Edwards, thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. David, where in the district do you think would be reasonable to relocate some of the industrial uses?
That's a good question. I mean, anywhere than the areas that have been, historically burdened of it. I guess I'll start there. Especially just due to the fact that, a lot of these areas have long legacy of air pollution, long legacy of, health impacts that we still have yet to uncover. So, I feel like, if opportunities arises, yes. But for me, it's less about, moving the industrial land, because like I said in my testimony, we can optimize the spaces on the land itself to, help be better neighbors. So, my request isn't we will all like DPW to move, of course, but, let's start by being better neighbors. I am thankful that DPW has, at least tried to, cut the grass and whatnot. We know how hard park management is in the District of Columbia. So the fact that
And I do want to
that.
talk about that because actually DPW does it. That's not a DPW function.
Right.
It's actually a different agency that manages parks.
Right, but as like Ms. Sharon highlighted in their testimony, a lot of that trash is like the park and their facility are literally like adjacent. So a lot of their trash that sits outside of their facility is impacting the park. And that park is fairly new, so it's really no like designated like anything to really take care of it. But yeah, like we said, to help mitigate some of the odors, we think increasing the green space could potentially help with that. But again, I feel like the culture within our district government just needs to be, again, addressing some of our environmental concerns. And we would like to, work with these agencies to figure out how, they can be better neighbors and have better community agreements. Because in the Brentwood community, there's a lack of transparency and accountability across the board, with all agencies. And as we heard in the testimonies today, us as residents keep on getting thrown around from agency to agency of who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that. But if we could come to the agreement that our communications and engagement and agreements needs to be more clear,
but let's start here. So, and Ms. Edwards, this is important. So the Zaire Kelly Memorial Park is it's on Department of Transportation land. It's not an official park, and this is where all the troubles begin in terms of maintenance. We have one of these at the other side of Ward 5 on the Ward 1 border called Wangari Gardens, and we have another one over on the west side of Ward 1. So we're no stranger to this. But one thing that could be beneficial is working with the council member in your ward to initiate a transfer of that land officially to DPR from the Department of Transportation, because once that happens, there's a whole treatment for it that happens regularly. Who cleans it, who mows it, who empties the trash. That's been really helpful for us. So that could be a good start. But in the meantime, it's probably a third-party contract that does the mowing, or the Department of General Services, and the trash collection could be a DPW responsibility. But a recent revelation that came to me was that there are maybe 100 parks in DC that DPR never officially asked DPW to collect the trash in, so it only gets picked up when someone puts in a 311 request, which is something that we are going to be taking up with DPR as well. But let's work through this, and I would highly, highly recommend engaging, it's Ward 5, right? The Ward 5 council member on this too, because that is probably the best way to make sure all of the legislative pieces come together too. But it may be that DPW doesn't have any responsibility for that space, or it may be that they're in charge of emptying the cans. But the rest of it, we got to get the right people involved because that space is really important.
Yes, and we will definitely welcome DPW to, reach out and work with us. We're trying to host a convening in the springtime of all the district agencies impacting the Ward 5 area, just due to the fact of the over concentrations of, industrial things happening. So we definitely appreciate any community engagement.
Great. Thank you so much. Mr. Webenson, what grant program from DPW helps support your new litter cans?
There's been a line item in the budget that the bids petitioned for about a decade ago, just to be able to replenish or add additional cans. The public cans take such a beating through just normal wear and tear, vehicle hits, civil unrest, that they just don't get replenished quickly enough. And so bids were doing it themselves and becomes a huge capital expense for us. So we just worked with, at the time, Director Howland, and then got some support from Mary Che at the time. But it's something that's been inconsistent, especially through the pandemic. And one of the things we're really trying to get, sort of the comments today, we worked with Victor Stanley to do a sort of rodent-proof public trash can, because we agree that the public trash cans are a huge source of food, and it's really hard to contain. And so we've put out 5 of them that we purchased ourselves as a test, and they've worked pretty well. We're also working with Metro Store, the ones who do the recycling or the composting cans, just to try another model. But they've been really good in sort of changing the behaviors of rodents in some of our plazas, where we want to have people enjoying them and eating lunch, or just enjoying the nice areas there, but have a place to put the trash away that doesn't really encourage rodent activity. And so we're hoping there'll be more funds in it. I know at the budget hearing, a lot of the bids to the bid council are going to be, again, helping to request additional funds, just because it plays a huge role in keeping a public space as rodent-free as possible.
For sure.
Aside from all the stuff we do with our bid members, trying to educate, and composters and containment devices and all kind of other things, and staff training.
One thing that might be helpful too, from our perspective, is if some of the ward council members might want to send funds from their committees to assist, that would be very helpful, because there's certainly an incentive ward by ward, and we'll be looking to solve some citywide issues. Like you heard, we just essentially got an order for, thousands of big bellies from everybody today. So I know you all can't use those because of the historic district.
Yeah, it's also costs and maintenance issues.
Yeah,
We've talked to our colleagues that we want containment necessarily without sometimes the mechanical challenges that come with the compacting. But yeah, we work happily to work with anyone to try and find better solutions.
Right on. Thank you for that. And Ms. Shore, thank you for all your testimony. Do you have any concern about the report we got earlier today about the electric vehicles in the fleet not being able to charge due to the cold? That was kind of strange.
Before I answer that question, I did want to point out that Jamani Overby from Nature Forward.
Yes. We have a couple more people that have joined, and we will add them. We're gonna do another panel.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose her testimony. So I would have to get back to you on the transportation issues. I could talk with my colleague Mike Litt, who chairs the Sierra Club Transportation Committee. That's not really my area of expertise. But what would be your specific question that we can get asked and answered?
Just if they are aware of any sort of issues. Like, I mean, I have an electric vehicle, and it slows. Sometimes there's like things charge more slowly when it's cold, but the idea that the entire fleet couldn't charge.
Yeah.
But in any case, like, we're dependent on these vehicles. in the future. So we want to make sure that we think through these contingencies. But in any case, I am so grateful for all the efforts around the bottle bill. It's been great to work together with everybody to move this forward, and the idea of dual stream recycling, et cetera, really important. And generally in the conversation today, I think we've had a lot of good input from residents about the way our waste management needs to work better. And what I hope we will get to with the bottle bill and other ideas is better waste management that is more forward thinking, rather than just trying to essentially solve old problems, right? I mean, we should be reducing the amount of waste in the green cans, and that helps our rat issue. And there are some more innovative ideas out there like pay to throw, where we're charged by our trash volume, to get people to reduce their waste, that I think should be on the table. As much as we hear about trash as an issue, whether that's from our residents or our president, we have to be smarter about our approach here, and not just fall back into old habits to solve persistent problems. So I'm really grateful for the way that you all are thinking about these things.
Great. I totally agree with you. I did note in the DPW's responses to the pre-hearing questions, there was a question about, was there anything that they didn't have funding for that they're required to do by law? And one of those is the pay-as-you-throw pilot, or save-as-you-throw pilot, as they refer to it in that report, which is why, the Sierra Club testimony is urging that there be funding to do that pilot in the fiscal year 26 budget. And once the bottle bill goes into effect and we get all the contamination of all of those beverage containers out of there, we do have the possibility of having a much cleaner stream of paper and cardboard, which is very valuable if it's clean, but worthless if it's a dirty pizza box. So it really does open up the opportunity for us to have more effective and innovative, as you call it, recycling programs. So I'm glad we're thinking along the same way. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Israel, thank you very much for your testimony. What improvements do you think could be made in DPW's administration of the compost pilot?
The administration of it, I don't have any immediate recommendations. I would say one thing that could be improved is the density of homes. It was rolled out kind of so that anyone could sign up, first come, first serve. And so that means that the routes aren't as efficient as they would be if it was in more dense neighborhoods or if more people were participating. I don't know if you're aware, but they are working with us to test out a new kind of bin to see if that's effective in deterring the number of disappearing bins that has happened, which is really kind of surprising.
Yeah.
So that's another possible improvement. But the actual administration of it, like that part of it seems to be working pretty well. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing is that at the moment, DPW manages all the interactions with the participants, the residents. We provide the service, DPW is in the middle. So we can't communicate to any participants about anything that happens, and they can't communicate to us. As it gets bigger, that seems to me that will be unwieldy and inefficient, but there may be reasons for it.
Were you aware of any issues with finalizing the contract for council approval?
I was aware that it took longer than we might have expected, but no specific issues.
Okay. And do you feel like you'd be ready to scale up to serve more households?
Absolutely. I think the original scope of the project when it was first anticipated was 12,000 homes, which would have been 1,500 in each ward. And that would be quite easy to achieve. And even bigger than that would be within the scope of what our team can handle. Now, the bigger it gets, the more you need to add some vehicles. And so that needs a little bit of lead time. But that's something that we certainly are familiar with doing, and we could scale this significantly.
And is there regional capacity to process more compost?
That's a great question. There is capacity. Today, the two main processing facilities in the area are in Prince George's County and out in Prince William County. And as far as I know, they still have more capacity to spare. There is the digester in Jessup, which has added more capacity in the region, although it's not composting, it's anaerobic digestion. Compost Crew acquired a facility up in Frederick, which we are working on renewing the permit for and plan to do some enhancements. So that will add more capacity not too far from here. So I think that there is more capacity coming, and I don't think that we're running into kind of any limits at the facilities that I've mentioned, but the region will absolutely need more capacity as more homes, buildings, and businesses start to compost their food waste.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Mr. Harrington.
Yes.
Have you worked with OAG as well, the way Commissioner White was talking about on illegal dumping?
Not yet. I know that the council passed a reform that gives them the authority to pursue civil action against scofflaw dumpers and property violators. My question at the time and still now is exactly how they're going to obtain the evidence, who's doing the investigating, if not DPW or MPD.
Okay.
I did have a conversation with them, and we will be, so I'm aware that we have the option of bringing these issues and evidence to them.
Okay. Helpful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. In your work with MPD and DPW, have they ever requested video footage from residential homes for illegal dumping?
Not to my knowledge. Yes, some of these dump sites could conceivably be within the view shed of a residential security camera. But I haven't heard anything about that. What I'll say in general is that although I bring a lot of concerns to them about illegal dumping and sanitation enforcement, the officers and the inspectors don't give a lot of information back to me about what's happening, and there may be reasons for that. They could compromise their investigations by telling people, but it can be frustrating to really not have hardly any idea of what's being done. Sometimes I come away with the impression that nothing's being done, just because I don't see I don't see what is being done. What I do see is that the dumping continues to happen. And as I mentioned with the court records that we obtained, we saw that very few people were being charged, and basically, unless you were doing it in 6th District, where that one officer was working, there was basically no chance that you would be charged.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Well, thank you so much to this panel. Appreciate it. We're going to do one more.
Miss Nadeau, can I just
Yes,
ask you one quick question? This is one quickie. Do you have any thoughts on perhaps improving the litter process that collectors leave behind when they're picking up the trash? Is that on your radar screen at all?
Yeah, it is. I mean, one of the big issues is when people aren't bagging their trash and then there is all that loose litter. That's actually a huge problem. So, we see that pretty consistently, and that's something that we need neighbors to help with.
They leave it behind though. They don't pick it up.
Yeah, no, I heard some interesting ideas today though about that. So we should definitely keep talking about whether it's a third crew or just, more regular cleanings, and also a reminder, neighbors can request those via 311 is an alley cleaning. So
the street, okay. All right.
Or street cleaning. You can request a street cleaning too, but yes, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next witness is Commissioner Warburton.
Oh, hi, so quick. Yes, hello, my name is Mike Warburton, Commissioner for 4CO3, which is the Petworth Metro area, Raymond Elementary. And hear about trash and compost in relation to rats, which it sounds like people have already been talking about. I'm not representing the 4C Commission, just to be transparent. But I've been in my current location for about 5 years now, 5.5. We've had multiple rat treatments in our alley, and they did their job well, but long-term efficacy of spreading poison around our homes repeatedly, maybe not so great. So I'm here to also support the curbside composting programs. I was looking through the zero waste plan and saw that it was the top priority for residents, and that actions 14 and 19 both called for the curbside collection. So yeah, big supporter of that. Like I heard you say, Councilmember Nadeau, my house also uses a private compost service that caused a big decrease in the rat activity inside our cans. But one issue we've had is that we share an alley with a large apartment building, and they have, a large bank of trash cans that have a ton of food waste in them. The lids half the time don't get closed because they're just overfilled with things. And so the rats have a massive buffet at their disposal there. And so as part of my testimony, I wanted to also, I guess, just identify that I think it's a bit inequitable, maybe, that residents of like the multi-unit buildings and such, as I understand it, basically get double taxed for trash collection because they pay the same tax as we do, but then their rents are, set to account for private trash collection at their buildings as well. And so it would really be my preference if we could get DPW to service all residents, regardless of what type of structure they lived in. And that way everybody would have the same consistent, reliable service, and everybody would be unified in applying pressure to DPW when necessary about improving services. I know that'd probably be a big increase in cost, but hey, what's the government for if not to pick up the trash and things like that, right? So, and then I also wanted to also echo the desire for stronger materials in the trash bins. That I heard, I forget their name, but and I understand composting being a priority there, but I think there are pretty innovative solutions we could do that would help the whole city feel a little bit more modern. Like I recently became aware of like the underground bins that are used in Amsterdam. They don't even have curbside collection really, other than these bins. You're nodding your head, so I'm guessing you're aware, and I won't go into more detail, but I thought that's a quite clever solution and would perhaps free up our alleys to be used in different ways, which I think would be really lovely. We have a lot of basically concrete surfaces in the district that are just kind of there for nothing but trash collection and some parking. So it seems like a little bit of a waste. And let's see, I think that was everything. Other than that, just thinking about the way things get prioritized, just having trash bins that are larger than recycling bins sort of, to me, kind of feels like the trash is what you're expected to do, and the recycling is a little bit of an afterthought. So just anything that encourages, like the bottle bill, I'm a supporter of the bottle bill. Anything that encourages people to be recycling instead of disposing, I would support. So I only planned to talk for 3 minutes, so that's all I got.
Thanks. We could talk more in a minute. Ms. Overby?
Hello, how are you? How's everybody? Forgive me, I'm on my phone because I'm having some complications with my laptop, but Good afternoon, Councilmember Nadeau and members of the Department of Public Works. My name is Jamani Overby, and I'm here today on behalf of Nature Forward to discuss critical environmental justice issues impacting the residents of the district. I want to begin by thanking Councilmember Nadeau and 11 out of the 13 council members for co-introducing the Recycling Refund and Litter Reduction Amendment Act of 2025. This legislation represents a crucial step toward reducing waste all over the city, specifically in our wonderful green spaces. Equity and expansion will probably be my keywords for the rest of my testimony, but I really wanted to share that Nature Forward is proud to be a founding member of 3RC, the Return, Refund, and Recycle Coalition, and we fully support the bottle bill, as many people I'm sure already have shared already. This bill will require the 10-cent deposit on beverage containers, which consumers can reclaim upon returning their bottles. Decreasing litter in our communities is not just a environmental necessity, but also an issue of public and mental health. More than 1,000 of district residents have voiced their support for this bill and through petitions and postcards. Recent community workshops I've led with neighbors and residents, they shared that they would be more likely to dispose of their bottles and pick up bottles with the bottle bill. So we hope to see that continue to progress. Another key issue is access to clean and safe public restrooms. The current DC pilot program for the public throne restrooms has shown promise, and we support expanding this initiative to 2025 and beyond, particularly in Ward 7 and 8. This expansion is essential for reducing E. coli pollution in DC rivers, including the Anacostia River, where human and dog waste contribute to unsafe water conditions. Today, no rivers or streams in DC are safe for swimming due to high levels of bacterial contamination, and providing more public restrooms that remain open 24 hours in high traffic areas and near waterways will help mitigate this public health issue while supporting the dignity and well-being of all residents. And also with the maintenance of that, possibly creating green jobs. Like others, I also would like to support the expansion of the compost pilot program and the implementation of the Save As You Throw pilot. DC has set an ambitious and commendable goal of diverting 80% of its waste from landfills and incinerators by 2032. And the ongoing curbside compost pilot program for single-family homes is a step in the right direction, but we must expand the initiative. The food waste collected in DC being processed where it replaces synthetic fertilizers for farmers is very important. And we ask that the expansion of this program and the institution of the Save As You Throw pilot program to include more DC residents to see the impact of programs like this that can bring us closer to our environmental goals and reduce our reliance on harmful waste disposal methods. Finally, environmental justice means ensuring that all residents, regardless of their zip code, benefit from the policies that create cleaner neighborhoods, healthier communities, and economic opportunities. Passing a strong and equitable bottle bill, expanding the Throne Bathroom Initiative, and scaling up the composting program, as well as other effective ways of waste disposal, are essential steps toward a more sustainable and equitable DC. I urge the Council and DPW to act swiftly on these initiatives and ensure that environmental justice remains the forefront of our city's public works agenda. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Okay. Commissioner, definitely appreciate your testimony. One of the things we talked about earlier today was not just well, we've talked about composting today. We also talked about pay to throw to reduce trash overall. We've talked about the ability to repair cans. I had put money in a pilot to actually do different types of containers by block. So like you'd have a corner set of containers and you would bring your trash out like any time of day whenever you felt like it, which still does have to get collected. I don't know if I love those underground bins. I don't know if we can do it given how much of our infrastructure is right there and how high our water table is, but I love the concept. But since we underground like gas power lines in addition to gas and water, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they do in Amsterdam. Maybe they figured it out.
Yeah, I was going to say about the water line. I mean, Amsterdam has canals, so they figured it out.
Good point. Good point. They probably pick up some trash by boat. But in any case, I'm for it. I put money in the budget to do a pilot for the containerized trash on corners. And we couldn't get anyone to opt in. So that money ended up going instead to the smart compost bins that are going to be serving the multifamily buildings and some Big Bellies, which is like, Big Belly is the MVP of this hearing, I think, basically. So that is something that we've been thinking about. And it really does. I mean, we had a lot of people complain about trash today, but I didn't hear everybody who was complaining feel like really fully embrace some of the solutions that are forward looking. And so I think that's something that we have to work on as a city, is thinking about, like, if we're asking for a solution, we have to be willing to mentally and emotionally accept that it might take a change in our habits, like a pay to throw program. So more to come on that. And then, I agree, we want to address the inequities between properties that are collected by our government and properties that are collected by commercial. I don't know that that means that we have to collect everything. I think that means that we need to be more specific, perhaps with some of these properties, about what their responsibilities are. For example, when we passed clean collections last year, we specified for the first time how much volume they have to make available in the building for trash and recycling to allow a better regulatory enforcement program. Because right now, if a building doesn't have enough capacity for trash and you call it in because it's overflowing, the inspector has to get there in time to see it overflowing and issue the citation. And if trash comes before they can get there, then they don't see it, they can't cite it. But if there's a requirement that they have to have a certain amount of capacity and they go and inspect and they don't, then we can address that better. But also, what does composting look like for multifam? And how can that be included in hauling contracts? The bottle bill is going to change a lot there too, because it'll reduce the amount of plastic and cans and glass going into the recycling containers. So there's a lot to do in that way. The bill also instructs the Office of Tax and Revenue to study the current trash tax credit that residents in multifamily buildings get, because the assumption is that it's too low because it hasn't been changed in a while. So multifamily residents do get a tax credit, but it's probably not comparable to getting trash service. Makes sense.
Yeah. May I make a comment or two?
Yes.
Cool. I didn't know if you had to ask me a question, but
no, go ahead.
Yeah, on the tax credit thing, that's good to hear. I wasn't aware of that. I guess I would just only say that, like you noted with RPPs needing proactive, action. I feel like tax credits are one of those things where it's better if we can just get the savings to people on the front end rather than on the tax form back end. But I was going to mention on the talk of incentives, with the compost program I use, we get a bag of mulch in the spring and stuff. And so I think maybe if we could do things like that show the positive impacts of switching our method of waste disposal, that might help persuade people in addition to just the financial penalties and things. So
for sure. Ms. Overby, thank you so much for your testimony. Just appreciate your partnership on all these issues, and happy to keep working together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all you do.
Same. Okay, that's the end. No more witnesses. This concludes today's performance oversight hearing. If you plan on submitting written testimony for the record, please do so by going to the council hearing management system at lims.dccouncil.gov/hearings. The record will close on February 25th at 5:30 p.m. The Committee on Public Works and Operations will be holding more performance oversight hearings over the coming weeks, including 2 this week on the Contract Appeals Board, the Office of Human Rights, and the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, and the Office of Risk Management. Please visit the council's hearing management system to view the council's upcoming hearings, where you will also register. You can also register to testify, view agency materials, and submit your own written testimony for the record. The time is